Story 1. My husband poured our daughter's ashes into the toilet and threw her urn at me. I'm posting this on a throwaway as my main account is very identifying and I just need to vent. I'm feeling sad, alone, and terrified. My head hurts. My heart hurts. I feel so alone and I don't know where to turn to. I had to spend the night in my car last night. I couldn't sleep through crying, trying to stay warm enough and thinking that somebody was going to suddenly appear at the windows. I've been trying to find a place to park up so I can try to sleep today, and I found a place, but I can't rest. I feel so empty and scared. I don't want to go into much detail here, but our daughter passed away very suddenly last year. My husband and I both got help and have tried to work through it together, but his drinking has been getting more and more out of control. It got to a point where he started to try to hide it, but it was making his behavior worse. I had a breakdown 2 months after our daughter passed, and I hadn't been to work since. I had quite a bit put away in savings and some money I inherited, so I was using that to contribute at home while I've tried to get myself back in better health. In January, my husband started on his sobriety journey, but his business started to suffer. There were some difficulties through the lockdowns, and we both worked hard to make sure the business made it through. He took out a loan earlier this year, and I gave him the rest of my savings and started back at work. Things were going well with the business and as well as they could have been for us until he relapsed last month and was hiding it from me. I lost my job 2 weeks ago and I've been looking for work since. It's been stressful, but nothing we couldn't have managed. Yesterday I got home and my husband was already home and was very drunk. It was a very loud and out of control kind of state he was in, and he was slamming around the house saying he was looking for something. I couldn't get much sense out of him and he was really irate. I didn't really know what to do, and when I tried to ask if he was okay, he got in my face and was quite aggressive with me. He randomly started to throw accusations at me, accusing me of all kinds of things that I have no idea where any of it came from. I was scared at that point and didn't want to be in the house with him. I hadn't seen him that angry before, and I think it was a buildup of grief that had come spilling out, but I felt scared. I put my shoes and coat on and told him I was going to head out for a while. That's when he snapped and accused me of trying to leave him. It all happened very suddenly, but he charged at me and got hold of my arm and threw me onto the floor and pulled me down the hallway. At some point of him drunkenly shouting about him not letting me leave him, he suddenly stopped and told me he was going to give me a reason to hate him so much. He stormed off into the front room, took the urn with our daughter, and headed to the downstairs toilet. I got up and tried to stop him from doing whatever he was able to do when he went towards the toilet. I was trying to stop him and was pleading with him not to. He shoved me quite hard and I fell. He poured all of the ashes into the toilet and threw her urn at me, hitting my leg. He then started yelling at me to get out before he killed me. I was shaking and felt like I was frozen, but I managed to get up and run to the front door. I took my keys in my handbag and drove off. I had no idea where to go, so parked up in a quiet area and just cried. I have done practically nothing but cry since. I have no family around and no friends that I can turn to who are close by. I was sick earlier on, but I've managed to keep some water down. I thankfully keep a supply of it in the car. I don't know what to do. I switched my phone off all night in case he tried to contact me. I didn't want to hear from him. He's tried to call me today, but I can't be around him while he is drinking again. I can't let him keep taking his anger out on me like this. I feel like it's all my fault. Everything. I just needed to vent. I'm exhausted of feeling like this. Update. My husband poured our daughter's ashes into the toilet and threw her urn at me. I'm not sure if I'm breaking any rules by posting an update. Thank you to everybody who reached out to me and commented on my original post. I didn't mean to leave any of you worrying. I deleted everything not long after taking an overdose. I had planned on trying again as soon as I got out of hospital. I'm still here though, and I was feeling extremely overwhelmed. I wanted to let you all know that I'm safe and I didn't go back. I can't get into everything that has gone on with my husband as the police have been involved and some of it is ongoing. I can say that he was playing games and acted calm and collected with them at first, trying to make out that he hadn't done anything wrong and that it was me with the problem. He told them that I was welcome home at any time. A couple of things happened, and after I received some very threatening voice messages and texts from him, he reported my phone as stolen and had me cut off. He was trying to make me go home as I had nowhere else to turn to. After some intervention and run-ins with the police, he offered to leave the house for a couple of days a few weeks ago. I was to go there with some help, allowing me to get my belongings and our daughter's things. Nobody asked him to leave, he offered. I arrived there along with some help to find that he had destroyed all of my things. When I say all of my things, I mean everything that I owned and that was in that house. I can't even imagine how long it must have taken him. He sliced my shoes and had gone over some of them in black marker, the same with my handbags. He cut up my clothes. All of my products were all over the bathroom, which he had smashed up. There were items of my clothes in the bath and he had poured bleach all over them, as well as my cosmetics, all destroyed and mixed in. He had smashed up / broken my other belongings. He had trashed the house, including our daughter's room. The only things I couldn't find were some of her things he had taken with him. I don't really remember much of being in the house. I suppose I kind of went numb once I realized what he had done and saw our daughter's room. The photos of it all are awful. He has claimed he doesn't remember doing any of it. He then put it down to a drunken rage. After doing it, he went straight over to his parents, knowing what was coming, and pleaded with them for help. They arranged for him to get some private help. I mentioned in my post about his issues with alcohol after our daughter passed away. We both got help together and separately. His drinking got out of control and to a point where he was trying to hide it, which made him even worse. I know he has been hurting, but it got to a point where it was almost impossible to have a reasonable conversation with him. After talking through things with various professionals, I realized now too that there was a lot of control going on, financial and emotional, and no matter how much he was hurting, I know it doesn't excuse his behavior. However much I have felt for him and wanted him to get all of the help he needs, I can't see past what he did with our daughter's ashes. I felt like I lost her all over again, and I felt like I had somehow failed her again. His parents did reach out and promise they would get back the things of our daughters that he took. I haven't heard from them since. I'm sure it isn't easy for them. I've been getting some help and I'm on a waiting list for some more therapy. I also start a new job on Tuesday. I am currently sitting here on the floor of my new place typing this out. I picked up the keys yesterday. My tenancy officially begins on Monday. It isn't much to look at and I'm starting all over again. But for the first time in weeks, I feel like I can finally breathe a little. It's a bit overwhelming to have some space of my own again, but for the first time in what feels like a long time, I feel like I can almost relax. I have had a new bed donated to me and it will arrive on Monday, and my key worker has applied for a cooker for me via a white goods scheme with one of my utility providers. I don't have any hot water or heating until my gas is uncapped on Monday, but I do have some electricity. I've got some books to read, and just this morning I picked up a bag of mostly canned food from the food bank. Took a lot to be able to face going, but it's enough to last me for the next few days and it doesn't need to be heated. I might not have what I had, but I'm not where I was. I'm not sure where things will go from here. It felt like I had died along with my daughter, yet my body was still there and going through life. I want to believe I can do something in her memory, even if that something is making it through each day. I'm safe and I'm trying to be well now. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My boyfriend, BF, got drunk at his friend's party. He woke up to the friend's fiancée taking advantage of him while his friend watched and filmed it. Now he thinks he cheated, but he was assaulted. I met my boyfriend in college when we had a class together. He was struggling because of his party lifestyle, but me, being a studious introvert, was thriving. I still remember the first time he talked to me. He practically cornered me after class one day and asked if I could help him pass because he was on academic probation. I said no at first. Why would I waste my time helping some frat boy who couldn't be bothered to show up to class sober? But he was persistent. He kept asking, saying he'd pay me, buy me coffee, whatever I wanted. I finally agreed just to shut him up. Honestly, our first study session was a disaster. He was late, hadn't read any of the material, and spent half the time texting his friends. I was ready to walk out and never look back. But then he looked at me and said, "I'm sorry. I'm in a hole. Please don't give up on me yet." Something in his eyes just seemed genuine. I don't know. So I stayed. The next time we met, he was on time, had actually read the assignment, asked good questions, and brought me coffee. Little by little, I saw there was more to him than just the party boy persona. He was actually smart when he applied himself, funny in a way that wasn't at someone else's expense, and he listened. I hated his guts at first, but for some reason, he made me fall in love with him. It wasn't overnight or anything like those stupid romantic comedies. It was gradual. One day, I just realized I was looking forward to our study sessions more than anything else in my week. He asked me out after about 2 months of studying together. I said no. He didn't push it, just said okay, and went back to discussing Chaucer or whatever we were studying that day. He asked again a week later. I said no again. This went on for about a month until I finally said yes, mostly because I was curious if he'd ever give up. Our first date was so awkward. He took me to this fancy restaurant and was clearly trying too hard. I was uncomfortable in my dress and heels. The conversation was stiff. We both hated it. Then halfway through dinner, he just looked at me and said, "This sucks, doesn't it?" I laughed so hard I snorted water out my nose. We left, got burgers instead, and ate them in his car while listening to music. That was the night I realized I might actually like this guy. He was such an open book, too, and waited patiently for me. I didn't let him kiss me until 4 months into dating. I know that sounds ridiculous to most people, but I had been hurt before and needed to be sure. When we finally kissed, it was in his dorm room after we'd been studying for finals. Nothing romantic, no build-up. He asked if he could. I said yes, and that was it. But it was perfect in its own way. I didn't sleep with him until our 1-year anniversary. Another thing that probably sounds crazy to most people. He was my first, and I really wanted to be sure I was giving my virginity to someone who truly loved me. I don't regret waiting. He made it special. Never rushed me. Never made me feel bad about waiting. I didn't ask him to, but he slowly gave up partying and drinking for me. It wasn't like I gave him an ultimatum or anything. He just started declining invites to parties, saying he'd rather watch movies with me. He started drinking less, then barely at all. When I asked him about it once, he just shrugged and said, "That stuff's not fun anymore. You're fun." We both found a new friend group in college who we've maintained to this day. Mostly other couples or chill people who weren't into the whole party scene. We'd have game nights, movie marathons, cookouts, normal stuff without all the drama that comes with the party crowd. He gave up everything willingly because he said he'd rather spend time at home with me. I never asked him to change. In fact, sometimes I worried he was giving up too much of himself for me. But he always insisted he was happier this way. The one thing from his past that he didn't give up, though, was his childhood best friend, who we'll call Max. Max always hated me. From the first time we met, he gave me this look like I was something he'd stepped in. I think he blames me that he sees my BF only a few times a month and that he isn't fun anymore. By fun, I mean getting blackout drunk and hitting on anything that moves. Max is that guy who peaked in high school and never moved on. He still talks about the glory days of being prom king or whatever. He still thinks dick jokes are the height of comedy. He still treats women like they're disposable. I tried to like him for my BF's sake. I really did. I smiled through his crude jokes. I made conversation when we were forced to be in the same room. I even defended him a few times when my BF complained about something he'd done. There was this one time a couple of years back when we were all at dinner together with some other friends. Max had too much to drink, as usual, and started making these comments about our relationship. Stuff like, "Man, remember when you used to be fun? You're so whipped, dude. It's sad." My BF laughed it off, but I could tell he was uncomfortable. The worst was when Max looked my BF straight in the eye and said, "You'll come to your senses eventually," right in front of me and everyone else at the table. The whole table went quiet. I felt like I'd been slapped. My BF quickly changed the subject, but the damage was done. I told him afterward I wasn't comfortable around Max anymore. So since then, he never let Max around me, but they still hung out. And I really didn't mind because I trusted him. They'd meet up for beers or to watch the game maybe once or twice a month. BF would always text me when he got there and when he was leaving, not because I asked him to, but just so I wouldn't worry. He'd always come home sober or at most slightly buzzed and would tell me about their night. I asked him once why he stayed friends with Max when they seemed to have so little in common anymore. He got this sad look on his face and said, "He's been there for me through some really dark times. I can't just abandon him because he's struggling. Apparently, Max's parents went through a nasty divorce when they were kids, and my BF was the only one who stuck by him. I can respect loyalty even if I think Max is a total douche. Over the years, Max has had this on-again, off-again relationship with this girl. Let's call her Hannah. Hannah seemed okay the few times I met her, though I always wondered what she saw in Max. She's pretty in that Instagram perfect way, smart from what I could tell, and had a good job in real estate or marketing or something like that. Whenever they'd break up, which was like every 6 months, Max would go on these benders and my BF would have to go talk him down. Then they'd get back together and the cycle would repeat. Okay, so this is what happened recently. Max got engaged to Hannah for the second time, I think, and invited both of us over to celebrate. It would have been just the 4 of us. Restrictions have been lifted in our area as long as contact and the amount of people involved were kept to a minimum. I declined, which in retrospect was a big mistake. I had this project due for work, and I was already stressed about meeting the deadline. Plus, the thought of spending an entire evening pretending to like Max sounded like torture. I figured my BF could go have a good time with his friend and I could get some work done in peace. BF offered to stay with me, but I told him he didn't need to and I'd understand if he wanted to support Max. Even though I despised the guy. I literally said, "Go have fun. One of us should." Again, this was a mistake in retrospect. If I'd gone with him or if he'd stayed home, none of this would have happened. He promised he wouldn't drink much and would be home by midnight. I remember kissing him goodbye and thinking how handsome he looked, all dressed up in his nice button-down shirt. That was the last normal moment we had before everything went to shit. Around 11 p.m., I got a text saying he was too drunk to drive and would crash at Max's place. I was annoyed, but figured it was better than him driving drunk. I sent back a quick, "Okay, love you," and went to bed. I didn't sleep well. I never do when he's not there. Our bed feels too big, too empty. The next morning, BF came home crying. We are living together. We have been for about 3 years now. He looked awful, still clearly hungover, eyes red and puffy, clothes rumpled like he'd slept in them. He could barely look at me. I knew something was wrong immediately. My BF isn't the crying type. In the entire time we've been together, I've seen him cry maybe 3 times. When his grandpa died, when we thought my cat might need to be put down, and during the last episode of the Walking Dead game where Lee dies. I guided him to the bathroom, ran a bath, and helped him undress. He was still crying, these silent tears that just kept coming. I bathed him like he was a child, gently washing his hair, wiping his face. He let me put him to bed after, curling up in a ball under the covers. I sat with him until he fell asleep, running my fingers through his hair, terrified of what could have happened. When he woke up a few hours later, he told me everything. Apparently, he got really drunk at the party, like way more than he normally would. He said Max kept pushing drinks on him, one more shot for the happy couple, until he could barely stand. Hannah was very flirty with him the whole night, according to my BF, touching his arm when she laughed at his jokes, sitting close to him on the couch, giving him these looks. He said he thought he was imagining it at first and tried to keep his distance without being obvious. At some point, he passed out on their couch. He remembers Max helping him lie down, bringing him a pillow and blanket. He thought he was just going to sleep it off there for the night. That's the last clear memory he has. The next thing BF says he remembers was when he woke up, Hannah was giving him a BJ while he was naked. He couldn't figure out where he was at first. Not on the couch anymore, but in their guest bedroom. He was confused, still drunk, and didn't immediately react. Then he realized Max was in the room, too, just watching from a chair in the corner. According to BF, they're into the whole hot wife thing, whatever that means. I had to Google it later and wish I hadn't. Apparently, it's some kink where the guy gets off on watching his wife/girlfriend with other men. Max was encouraging Hannah, telling her what to do, filming parts of it on his phone. BF says he was too drunk to resist properly. He tried to say no, tried to push Hannah away, but he was still so out of it that he couldn't muster the strength. He said at some point he just gave up and let it happen because he didn't know what else to do. He was afraid they wouldn't let him leave if he kept fighting. The next thing BF says he remembers was waking up again hours later, naked next to Hannah, with a bunch of used condoms around them. Max was gone by then. BF said he felt sick, gathered his clothes, and rushed out without waking Hannah. He threw up in their front yard, called an Uber, and came straight home. I just sat there in shock as he told me all this. This man I've been with for almost 5 years, who I thought was the love of my life, just told me he'd been with another woman and cheated on me. My heart is breaking right now, guys, and I really don't know what to do. He's been begging me for a second chance, even showing me he blocked Max and Hannah on everything. He promised never to contact them again. He also swears to not drink when I'm not around anymore, and that he'd keep his phone unlocked and I can look through it whenever I wanted. No questions asked. This all happened a few days ago, and I've barely left the room. I've been calling in sick to work. My boss is probably getting annoyed, but I just can't function right now. I tried to log in yesterday to check emails and ended up staring at the screen for an hour without doing anything. I just can't focus on my stupid job when my relationship is falling apart. Guys, I don't know where to go from here. I'm crying just typing this out, but I don't have anyone to talk to about this. Usually, when problems this big come up in my life, he's the one I turn to for help. But I can't exactly ask him for advice on this. Can I? I love him, but I don't know if I can trust him anymore. What should I do? Sorry for the long rant. I'm just lost right now. Update. Sorry I haven't been replying to any of you. I just didn't think I was in the right headspace to actually hold a meaningful conversation. Rest assured, I did read all of your replies, even the really mean ones that called me all sorts of names for even considering staying with a cheater or for being naive or whatever. Those comments honestly just made me feel worse. But I get that people are just trying to protect me based on their own experiences. And to the people who sent me DMs asking for more details about what happened while he was assaulted, you're disgusting, and I hope you step on Legos every day for the rest of your lives. So where do I begin? Well, I think some of you would be delighted to know that he left me for not being supportive. Sucks to be me, I guess. I guess you guys were right. I am a sucky girlfriend. He's now off to be with his brand new supportive girlfriend who understands him so much better than I ever could. Nah, just kidding. But some of you would have wanted that to happen, right? I know some of you were saying I should just dump him and move on. But relationships are more complicated than that. We've been together for 5 years. You don't just throw that away without trying to fix things. So here's what really happened. After reading some of your comments, especially the ones questioning why Max and Hannah would do this and pointing out that my BF was clearly a victim here, I started to see things from a different perspective. Some of you pointed out that this sounded less like cheating and more like assault or even rape. I never really thought of it as anything other than cheating initially. And it didn't help that when he came home to me that morning, he claimed to have cheated on me. And I guess my mind just started going to a dark place where logic goes out of the window. It's definitely not an excuse, but I really wasn't in the right mindset after he said he cheated. I was in shock, angry, hurt, confused. All these emotions hitting me at once. I couldn't think straight. It was like my brain just latched onto the word cheating and couldn't process anything else. I guess it was after the realization that this man would never willingly hurt me is when all the anger and pain of being cheated on was washed away. We've been together for years, and he's never even looked at another woman. Anytime we're out and some girl tries to flirt with him, which happens more than I'd like, he's a good-looking guy, he always makes it clear he's taken. He even shows them pictures of us together on his phone sometimes. It's actually kind of adorable. I couldn't really bring myself to talk to him at first. For like 5 days, we were just existing in the same space, barely speaking. I'd be on my laptop in the bedroom while he'd be on the couch watching TV or playing video games. We'd pass each other in the hallway, and it was like passing a stranger. We slept in separate rooms, ate at different times. It was awful. One night, I couldn't sleep again and went to get some water. He was on the couch, blankly staring at whatever was on TV. He looked empty, not sad, not angry, just completely void of emotion, like a shell of himself. Scared me more than his crying had. I sat beside him and told him I had no intentions of breaking up. Well, he came to life almost instantly, and before I knew it, his arms were wrapped around me. He was shaking, and I could tell he was crying. I was too. It was like a dam breaking. All the emotions we'd been holding back just came pouring out. Remember when I said I felt my world was crumbling around me? Well, for the first time in what seemed like forever, I could feel it starting to fall back into place. I didn't realize how much a simple embrace can be so calming. Everything was starting to feel right again, like we were facing this together instead of apart. Then we talked for the first time since it happened. He apologized again for cheating, and when I told him I didn't think he cheated, he had a puzzled look on his face. I asked him if he gave consent and he said no. I tried to explain that what happened to him was assault, but I guess he still doesn't realize that he was actually taken advantage of. He said the first thing that came to mind after what happened was that he cheated and was so afraid of losing me. This man, after being raped, first thought of how much he betrayed me instead of how he was betrayed himself. I was floored. He said his first response had to be to win me back, which is why he's been going the extra mile the last few days, taking care of me from a distance. When it was my turn to speak, I told him how sorry I was for not being supportive. I jumped to conclusions without actually thinking about it clearly, which was pretty out of character for me. I'm usually the logical one who analyzes everything, but I guess when it comes to matters of the heart, logic takes a back seat. We both apologized for not talking sooner, for letting this fester between us. We agreed we need to be better about communication going forward, especially when things get hard. We can't just shut down and hope the problem goes away. A few more exchanges after that, and the conversation shifted to Max and Hannah. I told him that I never wanted him anywhere near Max or her again, and he agreed. I've always thought he was a bad influence, but I never thought he'd take it this far, so I never stopped him from seeing his ex-best friend. He showed me his phone, which didn't have a lock anymore. He said he blocked both of them on everything but wanted to keep the open phone policy. He said it so I can be sure he isn't back in touch with Max. I appreciate the gesture, but I told him I trust him. It's Max and Hannah I don't trust. I urged him to file a police report, but he was against it. He said that even if he was raped, he couldn't bring himself to do it. I didn't really know the extent about it at first, but his family and Max's family had a very long history of friendship. Their moms were college best friends and their dads worked together. Not only were the two of them close, even their families were close. I thought they were just friends growing up, but it was more than that. They're practically family. Max's parents, even though they are divorced, are my BF's godparents and vice versa. They spend holidays together, go on family vacations together. It's like this whole interconnected web that I never fully understood until now. I didn't know all this because every time I visit his family, the topic was never brought up, and I haven't really met any of Max's family except for his little sister who came by to play with BF's little brother when we visited his parents last Christmas. He said he didn't want to ruin decades of friendship between their families and would be content with just going no contact with Max. I guess I understand his hesitation. Men already aren't taken seriously when it comes to stuff like this. And with all the family complications, it's just a mess. The police might not believe him. Max and Hannah could turn it around and say he initiated it. It would be his word against theirs. And with no evidence beyond those condoms, which are long gone, it's unlikely anything would come of it legally. Anyway, he's getting tested later today, and I hope that bitch didn't give my man anything. I'd imagine Hannah would be on birth control given how many dudes she apparently sleeps with. Though that's just speculation on my part and maybe a bit mean. But honestly, I don't care if I'm being mean about the woman who assaulted my boyfriend. BF and I came to the conclusion that Max most likely set the whole thing up to break us apart so he can have his best friend back. They used to be partners in crime after all when it came to parties and picking up women. I remember my BF telling me stories from their freshman year that would make anyone blush. Max has made comments before about how much better my BF was before me, how much fun they used to have together. I think he resented me for changing his friend, even though my BF changed on his own. Maybe Max thought if he could make my BF cheat or make me think he cheated, we'd break up and he'd get his party buddy back. I've also noticed that a few people were bashing me for making him wait 1 year for sex. I'm sorry, I just have different views. I believe that sex is for people who love each other, so I wasn't willing to sleep with anyone I wasn't deeply in love with and didn't love me back. I don't judge people who sleep around. My BF has a high body count, but I don't really hold it against him. But back then, I just wanted to be sure I wasn't just a girl he bangs or a conquest, but someone who he actually loves and sees a future with. Considering his past, I was very skeptical for a while, and I had my walls up the entire time, but he slowly tore them apart, and I'm glad he did. That reluctant yes when he first asked me out was and still is one of the best decisions I've ever made. Max's plan had the opposite effect. It's rough now, but I can see this experience making our relationship even stronger. I love him more than ever, believe it or not, and I'm sure he feels the same way. The last few days have taught us both how shitty our lives would be without the other. I guess it made us value each other more. Not that either of us took the other for granted. We deleted all social media for now, just a cleanse, you know. Neither of us wants to risk seeing anything from Max or Hannah or having mutual friends asking questions we're not ready to answer. We're focusing on each other right now, not the outside world. I know he didn't cheat. I know he won't break my heart. I know that he loves me. I know that I love him. It's hard right now, but knowing those facts makes me confident we can see this through. One Redditor pointed out that we were soulmates, and I like to think that we are. I can't see myself being with anyone but him. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My sister is getting married to my ex, and my parents demand I attend because they don't want anyone questioning my absence. So I attend happily and tell everyone the truth. Hi, I 30F, have a bit of an issue, and I don't quite know if I'm in the wrong here. I've read a lot of the posts on here, and today is the first time I find myself turning to strangers on the internet to help me out. But that's truly how desperate I am for an objective opinion. This one involves my ex-boyfriend, my sister, and my parents. I know none of that sounds like it'll go someplace nice, and you would be right to assume that. Let me start off by telling you about my previous relationship. When I first met my ex-boyfriend, Jake, 32M, I thought he was the love of my life. He was charming, funny, and supportive, or so I thought. We dated for 3 years, and for most of that time, I believed he was as invested in our relationship as I was. But looking back, there were red flags I ignored. He was secretive with his phone. Whenever I'd try to talk to him about how weird that was, he'd say that it was just work stuff. He'd also disappear for hours without explanation and had a knack for making me feel guilty when I brought it up. I chalked it up to my insecurities. After all, Jake always knew the right words to make me feel special when I doubted him. Things started unraveling during a family barbecue my parents hosted. My younger sister, Mia, 27F, insisted I come because it had been a while since I attended a family gathering. She said it would mean a lot to her, so I reluctantly agreed. At one point, I realized Jake had been gone for a while. As I wandered through the house looking for him, I stumbled into the guest room, and there they were, Jake and Mia, together. It was like the floor had fallen out from under me. My mind went blank as they scrambled to explain themselves. Jake stammered something about how he and Mia had connected and couldn't fight their feelings anymore. Mia said they didn't mean to hurt me, but that they were soulmates. Soulmates. That's the word they used to justify the months of deceit. I felt sick to my stomach. I stormed out and drove home in tears. It was honestly a miracle I didn't get into an accident because I could barely see anything in front of me through my tears. But what hurt even more was my family's reaction. When I told them, my parents brushed it off as young love. They said that these things happen, and Jake and Mia had just fell for each other. They acted like my heartbreak was a minor inconvenience compared to the blossoming love story between Jake and Mia. I went no contact with Jake and Mia and distanced myself from my family. Over the years, I built my life back up piece by piece. I focused on my career, made new friends, and found happiness again. Then, out of nowhere, I received an invitation to Jake and Mia's wedding. Felt like a slap in the face. At first, I planned to skip it. There was no way I was going to sit there and watch them pledge their eternal love after what they did to me. But my parents had other ideas. They called, texted, and even showed up at my apartment unannounced and begged me to attend. They claimed my absence would cause gossip and make the family look bad. They said it was time to let go of the past and take the high road. At one point, my mom sat me down and said, "We're not asking you to forgive them, but we're asking you to be the bigger person. Family is more important than holding on to grudges." I will admit that got to me. I barely spoke to my parents, but I didn't want to cut them off entirely. I realized that moving on meant being able to show that I had healed. I didn't see why I had to make people think that I was bitter when I really wasn't. I figured I could continue keeping my family at a distance, but that didn't mean that I needed to make myself look weak. So I told my parents that I would go to Mia's wedding. That decision should have been the end of it, but then Mia started spamming me with texts. Most of them were gloating messages about how she won, or how Jake had always preferred her. At first, I ignored them, but then a particular set of messages caught my attention. Mia, likely drunk texting, complained about how much pressure Jake's parents were putting on them to prove their worth if they wanted to inherit the family fortune. She bragged about how their wedding was going to seal the deal and ensure they'd stay in Jake's parents' good graces. Suddenly, everything clicked. Jake and Mia weren't just building a life together. They were banking on his inheritance. Knowing this made me see their wedding in a different light. I wasn't just some bitter ex who'd been betrayed. I was someone who had the power to expose their hypocrisy. But I didn't want to act out of spite. I wanted closure, not revenge. When I arrived at the wedding, I'll admit part of me wanted to turn around and leave. The decorations were beautiful, and everyone looked so happy, but it all felt so fake to me. I found my seat and kept my head down, planning to just get through the day. But then my parents came up to me and asked me to give a speech. They said it would mean a lot to Mia if I showed my support in front of everyone. I wanted to refuse because it was far too humiliating for me to do, but my mom did not stop begging me, and my dad started talking to me in his irritated tone, which made me crumble pretty quick. I knew that they just wanted me to play along so the family's reputation would remain intact, but I hated that they wanted that, knowing that I was humiliated by the very couple that they wanted me to praise. I once again agreed out of obligation and guilt. As I stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, I felt so angry and hurt. Just as I was going to give a very generic and monotonous speech, a surprising sense of clarity washed over me. I started my speech by talking about love and how it can come from unexpected places. I mentioned the importance of honesty and trust in a relationship. Then I pivoted to my own story. I told everyone how I had once been in a relationship with Jake, how I had believed he was my future, and how that future was stolen from me by someone I thought I could trust. I described the moment I found out about Jake and Mia and the pain it caused me. But I didn't stop there. I said that while their betrayal had broken me, it also taught me valuable lessons about resilience and self-respect. I spoke directly to Jake's parents, thanking them for their kindness during the time I had been with Jake. I mentioned how much I appreciated their support back then and how I hoped they knew the full truth about the choices Jake and Mia had made. I never raised my voice or sounded angry. I kept my tone calm and measured, letting the truth speak for itself. When I finished, there was a stunned silence in the room. Jake's parents looked furious. They walked out almost immediately, and I knew that my words had struck a nerve. The rest of the wedding was a blur of chaos. Mia came up to me, screaming about how I had ruined her big day. Jake tried to pull her away, but she wouldn't stop yelling. My parents were mortified, but I didn't care. I had said what I needed to say, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of closure. Later, I found out from a mutual acquaintance that Jake's parents were thinking about disinheriting him after my speech. They said they couldn't support someone who had acted so dishonorably. Mia and Jake's perfect future might just be gone in an instant, and they're blaming me for it. Mia's texts came flooding in soon after, accusing me of ruining her life. She called me selfish, petty, and vindictive, but I didn't respond. I had no regrets about what I had done. The truth needed to come out, and if it caused problems for them, that was their own fault. But it's been a week, and Mia has not stopped messaging me about how horrible of a person I am. It's starting to get to me. So I'm wondering, AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by exposing her relationship? Update 1. Hi guys. This post got so much more attention than I was expecting, but thank you to everyone who responded and gave me new perspectives to approach this situation from. But I feel like I need to clarify why exactly I agreed to go to the wedding when I could have just avoided the whole thing and cut off contact with my family for even thinking about suggesting that to me. When I decided to go to the wedding, I did it because I wanted to show my family that I wasn't the bitter, vengeful person they seemed to think I was. I went because I wanted closure, and maybe on some level, I also wanted to prove to myself that I was stronger than the pain they had caused me. But deep down, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that wanted to make a statement. They had humiliated me, and I felt like no one had ever truly understood how much it hurt to be betrayed by both Jake and Mia, two people I had trusted the most. Looking back, I can admit that my speech was petty. It wasn't just about telling the truth. It was about making sure that Jake and Mia felt the sting of what they had done to me. But I don't feel sorry for it. When I was hurting, no one stood up for me. No one told Jake and Mia they were wrong. My family swept it under the rug, and Jake's parents, while kind to me during our relationship, never intervened to hold him accountable. So no, I don't regret what I said. For once, I got to tell my side of the story. After the wedding, the fallout was immediate. Jake's parents were furious. From what I've gathered through mutual acquaintances, they had always prided themselves on being a respectable family. When they heard how Jake and Mia's relationship started, they felt deeply embarrassed. Jake's mom was especially angry. She believed Jake had lied to her about the timeline of his relationship with Mia and me. They couldn't even consider the idea of leaving their inheritance to someone who, in their eyes, lacked morals and integrity. It wasn't just about my speech. It was about Jake's pattern of dishonesty and the disgrace he brought to their family name. So they cut him and Mia off completely. I found out about Jake and Mia's financial troubles a few weeks later. One of our mutual friends reached out to me to share the gossip. Apparently, without Jake's parents' financial support, they were struggling to pay for the lavish lifestyle they'd been planning. The wedding alone had been a massive expense, and they'd been counting on the inheritance to cover it. Now, with no financial safety net, they were scrambling. Mia, in particular, was devastated. She'd always dreamed of living a cushy, comfortable life, and now she was stuck trying to figure out how to manage their mounting debts. Then came the messages from Mia. At first, they were angry and accusatory. She blamed me entirely for their situation, saying I had destroyed their future and turned Jake's parents against them. She told me I was selfish and vindictive, that I had ruined her happiness out of spite. But then her tone shifted. She started demanding that I apologize publicly to Jake's parents. She wanted me to tell them I had exaggerated the situation and misrepresented their relationship in my speech. Mia even suggested I should beg Jake's parents to reconsider their decision to cut them off. Her demands were outrageous. She wanted me to humiliate myself again just to fix a situation she and Jake had created. It was almost laughable. After everything they'd done, after the betrayal and the pain they caused me, she had the audacity to ask me to clean up their mess. I refused outright. I told her I wasn't responsible for their choices or their consequences. If Jake's parents had decided to cut them off, it wasn't because of my speech. It was because of their own actions. They had built their relationship on lies and betrayal, and now they were facing the fallout of those decisions. It wasn't my job to save them. I didn't respond to any more of Mia's messages after that. I blocked her and moved on. For years, I'd carried the weight of what they'd done to me, but now it felt like I had finally let it go. Their struggles were their own, and I had no interest in getting involved. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. It's been a week since I blocked Mia, and honestly, it feels great. Nobody else has reached out to me since, and hopefully, I'm not jinxing it by saying this. Anyway, I have a lot more in life to focus on than some petty drama, so I'm going to try my best to stay out of this. If I get dragged into this, I'll make sure to update you guys. Until then, adios. Update 2. Okay, I jinxed it in my last update. I know, rookie mistake. But it's been a few weeks since I last updated, and enough has happened for me to give you guys an update. So here goes. After blocking Mia and deciding to move on, I thought the drama was behind me. But of course, my family couldn't leave it alone. A week and a half after I ignored Mia's demands, my parents reached out and insisted that we all sit down to fix things. According to them, my speech had created an unnecessary rift in the family, and it was up to me to make things right. They were upset that Mia and Jake were struggling and felt I should take responsibility for what they saw as my part in their difficulties. It eventually got so bad that I decided to set things straight once and for all by meeting with them. I decided to meet them at our local cafe. During the meeting, My parents painted me as petty and vindictive. They accused me of holding on to grudges and said my speech at the wedding was uncalled for. They kept saying I needed to be the bigger person and show some maturity. They reminded me that family comes first, and that Mia was my sister, no matter what had happened in the past. To them, my actions weren't just about hurting Jake and Mia. They claimed I had embarrassed the entire family. They insisted I reach out to Jake's parents and apologize for escalating things, which they believed might help smooth things over for Mia and Jake. Their arguments didn't surprise me, but they still stung. They kept glossing over what Jake and Mia had done to me. They acted like I should just forget about it because time heals all wounds. They never once acknowledged how much pain I had gone through because of their betrayal. Instead, they focused on how my actions had made things worse for Mia. It was all about Mia's future, Mia's happiness, and Mia's relationship. Once again, I felt like my feelings didn't matter. Since no one was standing up for me or actually even thinking about me, I knew I had to stand my own ground, and that's exactly what I did. I stood my ground. I told them that I wasn't going to apologize for telling the truth. I reminded them that Mia and Jake's relationship began with betrayal, and if they were facing consequences now, it wasn't my fault. I pointed out how they had never held Mia accountable for what she did to me and how they had always expected me to be the one to make peace. I told them that I was done being the one to clean up everyone else's messes. If Mia and Jake were struggling, it was on them to figure it out, not me. My parents tried to reason with me and said that Mia, Jake, and I were young and that these things happen at that age, but I wasn't having any of it. I got so frustrated with them at some point that I got up and stormed out of the cafe. I turned my phone off as well because I didn't want to hear anything more from them. But even though I was so sure about my stance, I started feeling guilty. I know I did nothing wrong here. A lot of you pointed that out, and a lot of you also told me I needed to stop getting guilt into things, and trust me, I'm working on it. But I don't know what happened that day. My parents' words kept echoing in my mind. They made me feel like I was being heartless, like maybe I had gone too far with my speech. I started wondering if there was more to the story with Jake's parents. Had my speech really been the reason they disinherited Jake, or was there something else I didn't know about? The curiosity and guilt got the better of me, so I decided to reach out to Jake's parents. I wanted to hear their side of the story directly. When I contacted them, Jake's parents were surprisingly open to talking to me. They said they had been upset with Jake long before the wedding but hadn't acted on it until my speech gave them clarity. They explained that Jake had lied to them about several things during our relationship. For example, he had exaggerated his career achievements and pretended he was financially stable when he was actually relying on them for support. They had been suspicious of his behavior for a while, but didn't want to confront him without solid proof. My speech at the wedding was the tipping point. It confirmed what they had been suspecting all along, that Jake was dishonest and manipulative. They told me they had been particularly disappointed by how Jake and Mia's relationship started, as it showed a complete lack of integrity. Jake's mom said they felt betrayed because they had trusted him to be better than that. My speech didn't make them cut Jake off. It simply validated the concerns they already had. They made it clear that their decision was based on years of observing Jake's behavior, not just the revelations at the wedding. They also expressed gratitude for my honesty. They said they admired how I handled myself at the wedding, even though it must have been a difficult situation for me. Hearing that felt like a weight off my shoulders. For so long, I had felt like no one understood how much Jake and Mia's betrayal had hurt me. Knowing that Jake's parents saw the truth and appreciated my perspective made me feel validated in a way my own family never had. After that conversation, I felt more at peace. I realized that my speech wasn't the root cause of Jake and Mia's problems. Their struggles were the result of their own choices and actions, not mine. I've carried so much guilt over the years, but now I see that I've done nothing wrong by standing up for myself. If anything, I gave Jake's parents the clarity they needed to make a decision they'd been avoiding for far too long. My family, of course, didn't see it that way. They continued to push me to reconcile with Mia, but I've stopped letting their opinions affect me. I've spent enough time feeling guilty for things that aren't my fault. Jake and Mia's situation is theirs to deal with, and I have no intention of getting involved anymore. For once, I'm putting myself first. That's really it for this update. I've blocked my parents everywhere as well, and I think I'm going full no contact with them until… Well, I don't know. I don't want to think about that either right now. I'm just going to focus on myself and moving forward. If anything happens, I'll be sure to come here and update you guys. Thank you for all the advice and love. You have no idea how much it means to me. Update 3. Once a cheater, always a cheater. That's a lesson I learned the hard way, and it's one I'll never forget. It's been 4 months since my last update, and for 3 of those months, things had been blissfully quiet. Mia and my parents stopped reaching out. They finally accepted that I wasn't going to play peacemaker or fix the mess Mia and Jake had made of their lives. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt at peace. I wasn't consumed by guilt or anger, and I was finally able to focus on myself and my happiness. But of course, nothing stays peaceful forever. At the start of this month, I received a text from an unknown number. It didn't take long to figure out it was Mia. She wasted no time informing me that she had annulled her marriage to Jake. She said she couldn't do it anymore and felt I deserved to know. I didn't respond. I'd already made it clear that I didn't want her in my life, and I wasn't about to reopen that door. But Mia wasn't done. Over the next few days, she sent a barrage of texts, gradually revealing what had led to her decision to leave Jake. According to Mia, the financial struggles they'd faced after Jake was cut off had taken a huge toll on their marriage. Jake, who had always relied on his parents' money, couldn't handle the pressure of living on a tight budget. Instead of working through their issues, he turned to cheating, and not just with one woman. Mia claimed she discovered he'd been unfaithful with multiple women, including 2 of her bridesmaids. Without me asking, I never responded, but I guess she knew I was reading the texts because my read receipts are turned on. Mia explained how she found out. She said she'd started noticing Jake's behavior becoming more erratic. He was staying out late, coming up with flimsy excuses for his absences, and being secretive with his phone. At first, she brushed it off because she thought that it was just the stress getting to him. But one night, she received a message from one of her bridesmaids who confessed to having a brief fling with him. The bridesmaid claimed she hadn't known how to tell Mia but felt guilty about keeping it a secret. That confession opened the floodgates. Mia confronted Jake, who initially denied everything but eventually admitted to cheating, not just with the bridesmaid who came clean, but with another bridesmaid and a few other women as well. As I read Mia's texts, I felt so many things. Part of me felt vindicated. Jake had finally shown Mia his true colors, and she was experiencing the same betrayal I had endured years ago. Felt like karma had come full circle. At the same time, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for her. I knew how devastating it was to be cheated on, to have the person you trusted most completely shatter your world. But that pity didn't last long. Mia might have been betrayed by Jake, but she had betrayed me first. She had made her choices, and now she was dealing with the consequences. Mia didn't stop at just explaining what happened. She started asking me for advice. She said she didn't know how to cope with a betrayal, and wanted to know how I had managed to move on after Jake cheated on me. She kept trying to connect with me, saying we had both been hurt by the same man, and that we should support each other. But what struck me most was what she didn't say. Not once in all her messages did she apologize for what she had done to me. She never acknowledged the pain she had caused me by betraying me with Jake. Instead, she acted like we were in the same boat, as if her suffering somehow erased the past. I didn't respond to any of her messages. I'd already given her more of my time and energy than she deserved. After a few days of nonstop texts, I blocked her again. I felt no guilt this time. If anything, I felt relieved. Relieved that I didn't have to deal with her anymore, and relieved that karma had finally come around. Jake had shown Mia exactly who he was, and she had no one to blame but herself for ignoring all the red flags. As far as I'm concerned, she's reaping what she sowed. Looking back, I have no regrets about how I handled the situation at the wedding or in the months that followed. Telling the truth wasn't petty. It was necessary. Jake and Mia's relationship was built on lies and betrayal, and it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. I've spent too much of my life trying to please people who don't deserve my kindness, and I'm done with that. For the first time in years, I'm focusing on myself and my happiness, and it feels amazing. I've learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and let karma take care of the rest. So that's it from me. I'm finally going to move on and put all of this behind me. It's sad that I've lost my family in all of this, but I've been thinking about it, and I think that it's time that I go to therapy. I mean, I need to get all of this properly sorted out because I feel like there's a lot of emotions that I'm avoiding dealing with right now. Also, I'm seriously so grateful to every single one of you who replied and even privately messaged me to check in on me. You guys were the best, and honestly, you made this whole experience a lot easier to deal with. Alright then, bye-bye. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Parents skipped my wedding. Now relatives are refusing to attend my sister's expensive wedding, and my parents say I ruined their reputation. I, 28F, got married 8 months ago after being in a relationship for 4 years. Everyone attended the wedding with the exception of my parents and my sister, 26F. I wasn't surprised about my sister not attending, since she and I never really got along well anyway. I had extended an invitation to her just out of politeness and common courtesy. But my parents being a no-show was a surprise. It's no big secret that my parents have always preferred my sister over me. She's always been better at pretty much everything. She is definitely a lot more conventionally attractive than me because I'm kind of short and chubby, and she is literally supermodel material. I'm not even exaggerating. If I'm not wrong, when she was in college, she actually did dabble a bit in modeling and was part of some assignments, but then she got too busy with her degree and quit. She has a business degree, and right after college she got a job offer from a pretty big company and started climbing the corporate ladder pretty quickly. She's young, beautiful, and accomplished, and my parents have always been more proud of her than of me. To be honest, I don't blame them for that. She is the daughter that they can actually show off. I'm pretty ordinary in comparison. I don't deny that because neither do I have the looks nor the brains. I'm not demeaning myself. I'm just being practical because even though I'm not as accomplished as her, I'm still pretty happy with my life. It used to sting that my parents were not as proud of me as they were of her, and neither did they make any efforts to give me the same kind of love and affection. With time, I just accepted it. It's not like I had a choice. I had tried to do my best to get my parents to treat me the same way ever since I was a kid, but nothing really worked. It's like they were obsessed with my sister and I was just never going to be good enough, so why bother constantly trying to impress people who were just not going to see the good in you and just keep comparing you to your sister? After one point, I just stopped trying. I started living my own life, and I have to say, after that my life got much happier. I still kept in touch with my parents, though, because I didn't want to create any drama, and I knew that they were very conscious about keeping up appearances. So if I suddenly just stopped talking to them and cut them out of my life, they would make a huge thing out of it, and I really didn't think that the drama would be worth it. So I chose to be there at a surface level, but apart from that, I was pretty distant from them, and they didn't seem to mind it either since they had my sister to obsess over. That's how it had been for the past couple of years, and then last year I got engaged to my longtime boyfriend. Of course, I told my parents about it. I even invited them, but they didn't show up. It's not like I missed them much at the wedding, but even then, it was a bit of a shock because a lot of people did ask about my parents. Nobody was surprised that my sister didn't show up because they knew that we didn't have the best relationship, but my parents not showing up was a big deal, especially without even an explanation. So, a couple of days after the wedding, I decided to ask them about it. Even before the wedding, when I had noticed that they hadn't replied to my invitation, I had tried to get through to them, but they hadn't responded to me back then. I did think that something was fishy, but I didn't worry too much about it because I already had a lot on my plate. After the wedding, though, I really needed some answers, so I decided to confront my parents once and for all. When I called them after everything had been done, they finally picked up, even though I had thought that they were just going to ignore me like they had been for the weeks leading up to the wedding. As soon as they answered the phone call, they told me that they were really upset that they couldn't even make it to the wedding and started telling me that I really should have sent them a formal invitation. I was obviously very confused because as far as I was concerned, I knew for a fact that I had invited them. My husband and I had meticulously gone over the guest list over and over again just to make sure that nobody had been excluded. We had sent out physical invitations as well as e-invites, and I just knew that my parents had received an invitation. So when they said that they were upset that I hadn't even bothered to send them an invite on the phone call, I knew that something was off. While they were telling me about how insulted they had felt because they hadn't received an invitation, I decided to go check whether I had actually sent it or not, and sure enough, I definitely had. So I knew for a fact that they were just trying to gaslight me, but I didn't say anything. I just apologized for my mistake and then hung up. I was obviously very annoyed that they were trying to make me think that this was my fault somehow, even though they had decided to skip my wedding on purpose for reasons that I didn't even know. After that phone call, I spoke to my husband about what had happened and how my parents had tried to gaslight me, and he told me that he was pretty sure that they were just upset that I was getting married before my sister. So that's why they had decided to skip the wedding, and now they were trying to gaslight me into believing that I had somehow missed inviting them so they would have an excuse without having to own up to their own fault. It was actually my husband who made me realize that they were really just upset because I was getting married before my sister. At first, I didn't understand what he was getting at, but then he brought up several instances. First, when I had called my parents to inform them that I was engaged, they didn't seem happy at all. They looked pretty stunned, but I had just assumed that they were surprised because I was calling them to inform them about it at all, since we had a pretty cold relationship. I had only called them before I posted about it on social media because I thought this was my responsibility as a daughter and I thought it would be more polite to fulfill it. So I thought that's what they were surprised about, that I was informing them. But my husband told me that he had immediately realized that they were not happy about it because the look that they had on their face was not one of a happy surprise. He didn't bring it up with me at the time because he didn't want to make a big deal out of it or stress me out. But then, even at the engagement party, he could see that my parents were sitting in a corner and sulking instead of socializing with everyone, and when he tried to go to speak with them just to be polite, he saw that they were on the phone with my sister and he could hear her crying on the other end while they were trying to comfort her. It doesn't take a genius to figure out why they were not looking too happy about my whole engagement situation, and even though he couldn't hear what my sister was talking about on the other end, he could make a good guess. As soon as my parents realized that he was standing nearby, they put their phones aside and started putting on an act with him and stuff, but it was too late. I was quite surprised when I found out these things, but it made a lot of things make sense. The only reason he hadn't told me anything about it was that he did not want to make me feel anxious about the whole wedding, since I was already pretty worried about planning it and stuff. It was only after the wedding that I found out about it, and I'm pretty sure that this must have been the real reason they didn't attend the wedding, because it couldn't have been possible that they did not receive the invitation, especially when I had checked and double-checked everything. So, after they didn't show up at my wedding, I decided that I was not going to be speaking to them anymore, not even for the sake of appearances. I had had enough, and if my sister was their only priority, then they could stick to that. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, I heard from a couple of my relatives that my sister is engaged. Apparently, she's been with this guy for the past year and he proposed and she said yes. Good for her. I know that my parents are splurging on this wedding because they've been bragging about it online. They've already spoken to a couple of their friends and have started looking into massive venues, which are going to be pretty expensive. My sister has been telling our cousins that she's going to be shopping from Vera Wang, and I just know that it's going to be a huge deal. I didn't particularly care about it, but then a couple of days ago, my parents got in touch with me and told me that it was really messed up for me to try and ruin my sister's wedding. I had no idea what they were talking about, so I told them that I hadn't said anything about it. Neither did I care because we hadn't been in touch for a really long time, and I was hardly interested in fighting with them right now. But they told me that they knew that I had spent the past 8 months after my wedding just talking crap about my family, and they were very disappointed in me. They told me that apparently all the relatives that they had spoken to so far had shown absolutely no interest in even attending the engagement party and had already started coming up with excuses to not attend the wedding. And they knew for a fact that I had a hand in this because apparently my sister was very upset that our family is going to be a no-show at her engagement party, and she had decided to vent to a cousin of ours. And she had been told that apparently I had been telling everyone in the family that my parents had not shown up at the wedding because they were upset that my sister was not getting married before me, which is how they would have liked things to be since they think that she's prettier and more successful. They accused me of painting them in a bad light, and now because of my accusations, our family was hesitant to even attend the engagement party, let alone the wedding. And there they did kind of have a point because after the wedding, there was a phase where anytime my relatives would ask me why exactly my parents hadn't shown, I would just tell them what I thought. I was very upset about my parents and their behavior, and after whatever my husband had told me, I didn't think that I needed to hold back anyway. So whenever I ran into any relative or was about to attend any family event and they would ask me if I finally got an answer as to why my parents were not present at my wedding, I would just tell the truth. In my opinion, I didn't think that I was gossiping about them or doing anything wrong because as far as I was concerned, even though they had always been very concerned about keeping up appearances, they couldn't be bothered to do that at my wedding because to them, sparing my sister's feelings was more important than anything else. So I had learned my lesson. I was not going to be putting any efforts, and after my husband had told me, I thought that being honest was the way to go. I didn't really think about the consequences at the time. I thought that people deserved to know the real reason they were not there at the wedding. I told them whatever my husband had told me. I also told them about my conversation with my parents, and I made it sound very casual. I didn't even try to make it sound like I was seeking sympathy, but I didn't mince my words either. What I didn't realize was that word got around, and at this point, pretty much everyone in the family knows that my parents first skipped my wedding because they didn't want my sister to feel bad about them attending, and also because to them, she was more of a priority, and on top of that, they tried to gaslight me to believe that I had somehow missed inviting them. And even though they didn't say anything to me directly, my relatives have now decided that they don't want to attend my sister's wedding. They don't want anything to do with my parents, and the cousin who told my sister about all of this had overheard her talking about it for quite some time, and this girl is quite a bit of a gossip, so I'm not surprised that she decided to pass on that information to my sister and my parents, because I'm pretty sure that she just wants to see the drama unfold. And she's in luck because my parents are very upset. They think that I have sabotaged them on purpose, and they think that I'm the one who is jealous of my sister, so that's why I spread these rumors on purpose and made them look like the bad guys. They said that my husband made up that whole incident, that nothing of the sort had happened, and they even accused me of not inviting them on purpose so I could have an excuse to seek sympathy from relatives and make them look like villains. I don't agree with any of that. I'm pretty sure that my husband had been telling me the truth, and I'm also pretty sure that I definitely sent those invitations to them. What I do feel a bit weird about is the fact that because of whatever I had told my relatives, they are now choosing not to attend my sister's wedding. So, am I the asshole for telling my entire family the real reason why my parents did not attend my wedding? Edit. There are several reasons that I don't get along with my sister, and I never have. The biggest one being that she's always trying to put me down. It's not enough for her that our parents already prefer her over me. She needs me to be acutely aware of it at all times. I really don't know what her problem is, but right from our childhood, she's always tried to rub things in my face. It's not like I didn't know that she was a lot more successful than me right when we were kids, because she was always at the top of her class, she was good at sports and everything, and she was also pretty popular. That should have been for her, but for some reason, she made it a point to make me feel bad about it with her snarky remarks, comments, and stuff like that. She had her group of cronies, even though I was a senior to them, who literally tried to bully me every day, and the only reason I never made a big deal out of it was because I didn't think they were significant enough for me to address. At worst, they were just a minor inconvenience for me. I found them annoying, but I didn't care much about them. As for my sister, I really thought that eventually, she would grow out of this stupid little habit, but she really didn't. She continued to behave the same way, kept making jokes about me, taking digs at me and stuff, well into her adulthood to the point where I literally just stopped showing up at places because of her. I don't want to create any drama. I'm a non-confrontational person usually, and I don't enjoy interacting with people that I don't like. I just try to steer clear of them altogether, so for the past couple of years, I've only shown up at family events when it's been absolutely necessary. But when it's small stuff, I tend to skip it just because I don't want to see my sister. So yeah, that's why I don't get along with her, and I have no regrets about it either. It's not like I didn't try to get along with her when we were kids. I really did. But at one point, you just realize that this is not the kind of person you want to have in your life. That's the sort of awakening that happened to me a couple of years ago with my sister, and then again recently with my parents. The only reason I had even been holding on to these relationships for such a long time in the first place, in spite of the pain they have already caused me so far, was because they were all that I had as a family. I mean, sure, I had my relatives, but it's just not the same. However, now I really do think that my relatives are probably more my family than these people ever were. Update 1. Hey, so I started ignoring my parents after reading the comments here because I realized that telling the truth to the rest of my family was not as bad as they were making it out to be. I just shared my side of things. I don't have to feel sorry about it. So when they started texting me nonstop, I decided to reply and say the same thing to them. And then they started arguing with me, telling me that I had done all of this on purpose, that I wanted to ruin their image for the rest of the family just because I had always been jealous of my sister. We were speaking to each other on a phone call, and before I picked up, I had already decided in my head that this time I was just going to let it all out because I really needed to vent. And as soon as they accused me of being jealous of my sister, I just agreed. I told them that I indeed was jealous of her, but not because of the reason they thought. I was not jealous of her because she was more accomplished than me or because she was more conventionally attractive. I had always been jealous of her because instead of being impartial, the two of them had always preferred her over me. I could understand the rest of the world choosing her over me because of the reasons I mentioned, but even my own parents. That actually hurt, and I was sick of pretending that I didn't care because things like this get to people. And even the expectation that this shouldn't matter to me, that I should just shake it off and pretend that I'm constantly fine. That's also quite unreasonable. But I did that just because I always expected that at some point, my parents would start appreciating me for who I am. But that never happened. And even when I was not trying, I was still subconsciously trying to get them to appreciate me somehow. That's why I had kept my mouth shut about their terrible treatment of me for so many years. But now when I was finally speaking up, they had an issue with it just because it was making them look bad. Well, tough, because if they really think the truth is making them look bad, then maybe they are the problem in the situation and not me. If they wanted to come off as good parents, then maybe they should have just been good parents, and then I would only have wonderful things to say about them. But they had handed this ammunition to me themselves, so now they have no right to complain about me making them look bad. If I wanted to tell my relatives how I had been treated by my parents, how they had always chosen my sister over me, and make a big deal out of it, then I definitely would do that. By then they had already accused me of playing the victim and seeking sympathy, so fine, maybe I was doing exactly that. Instead of calling me again and again trying to get me to go back on my word, maybe they should just try talking to my relatives and convince them that they are not the kind of people that I made them out to be. Maybe that would be a more productive use of their time, but talking to me would not get them anywhere because I've already said whatever I had to say, and if my relatives have chosen to believe me, then good for me. The bottom line was that I was not going to fix the situation for them. I'm not responsible for anybody else's reputation apart from mine. My parents just went silent, probably because they were not used to this kind of behavior from me, since I had already mentioned that I'm a non-confrontational person and I'm also pretty quiet and introverted. So an outburst like this was not something that they had expected. They had probably thought that I was just going to let this slide as well, but I was done letting them walk all over me in the expectation that maybe they would appreciate me at some point. But after a couple of seconds, my parents told me that since I had already decided that they were terrible parents and I had such strong opinions on their failure to raise me the same way that they had raised my sister, they had decided that maybe it was time to let me go. So far, they had been expecting me to fix the situation because they thought that I was family, they thought that I was their daughter, so I would at least be concerned about it. But very obviously, I was happy that they were suffering, so now they told me they had no expectations from me and I was free to lead my life the way that I wanted to. They would not bother me ever again. They ended their little speech by telling me that at the end of the day, both of us were their daughters, and maybe I just felt like they had always preferred my sister over me because I was the insecure one, but that was not their fault and I shouldn't blame them for it. So, even in the end, they just couldn't accept that a part of this was their fault. They wanted me to be the bad guy. It took a lot of effort for me to keep my mouth shut, but then I just didn't say anything because I knew that arguing with them was just going to be pointless and I didn't want to end up talking in circles. So if they wanted to make me the villain, that was completely fine with me. At least it would get them off my back. But now that I've gotten my point across, I've spoken to them about how I felt all these years, I feel a lot lighter and much better now. Whatever happens with my sister's wedding or whatever, I really don't care about it. That's their problem to deal with. I'm just going to do my thing. Update 2. Hey, a couple of days ago I had that conversation with my parents, and today my sister reached out to me and sent me a text saying that whatever I had said to my parents, it was really wrong and they were very upset about it. After all, they had raised me, they had done everything for me as parents, and now I couldn't just turn around and tell them that they hadn't been good enough because that was really ungrateful of me. She was acting all holier than thou, and I knew that she was just loving this opportunity to lord it over me, pretending to be the epitome of grace and dignity when she was anything but that. It really annoyed me, so I didn't even reply to the text, I just blocked her. I thought that would be good enough, but then a couple of hours later, my husband called me and told me that he had received a text from an unknown number, and sure enough, it was my sister texting him. She had basically just told him the same things and then told him that he needed to convince me to apologize to our parents because what I was doing was really wrong, and since he's part of the family now, he can't just sit on the sidelines like a spectator and let things like this go on, especially when it's making me look like a complete fool. I was furious that she had had the audacity to text my husband, but my husband found it very funny. He thought that it was hysterical that my family actually thought that texting him and telling him to make me apologize was going to work, and because of him I was kind of able to find it funny as well and blow it off because otherwise I really would have gone all out. In the past couple of days, I haven't really told anybody about what's been going down with my parents because I haven't had the time to speak to most people since I've been quite busy with work. But then if anybody asks me or if I run into anyone, I'm going to be very open with them because I'm sure that that's the thing that's going to make them most upset. I'm not usually big on gossiping, but if this is making my parents unhappy, then I'm all for it. And the best part is that it's not even gossiping. I'm just telling them my side of things and I don't even have to make anything up. I just have to tell them how they actually behave, and it's bad enough for people to dislike them. The funniest part of all of this is that even though they already know that I'm not going to be holding back anymore, neither am I going to be protecting the reputation of the family by staying silent. They're still going out of their way to make things worse for themselves by pulling off these stunts. Update 3. Hi, so it's been a couple of weeks since my last update, and my parents have started telling everybody in the family that apparently I'd been spreading false rumors about them to make them look bad just because I was jealous of my sister and I wouldn't be able to stand it if people actually attended her wedding since it was going to be so much grander and extravagant than mine. I was pretty sure they thought that this strategy was going to work, making me look like the bad guy and stuff, but most of the people from our family had already decided that they wanted to be on my side. To be honest, I don't even have to try. They already felt like my parents indulged my sister too much right from when we were kids, so my version of things was a lot more believable to them than whatever my parents were trying to get them to believe. So instead of just taking their word for it, they actually told me about what my parents had been saying about me behind my back. In short, their whole plan backfired because now people are laughing at them and their stupidity with me. This is karma at its best, and I'm really glad that they chose to show their true colors to everyone. Now on to the next story. Story 5. My husband had an affair with a 20-year-old and had twin boys, but his parents want me to raise his affair children after they both passed away in a car crash. Hello, everyone. My 45F husband, 49M of 23 years, had an affair with a 20-year-old girl since 2020. I found out this year when his affair partner gave birth to twin boys in March. Obviously, we were going to divorce. We've been hashing things out since, as it's been a lengthy process due to some properties in common and we needed to get an accountant since he used the shared account for his affair. Finally, things seemed to be getting close to the end when both my husband and the woman he cheated with were killed in a car crash. By some miracle, the twin babies were not harmed in the crash. Now they are orphaned, and neither set of grandparents can take them in permanently. My husband's parents are both in assisted living, he has no siblings, and the only aunt that could take them refuses. She's been child-free her whole life. On the woman's side, I'm not sure the details in full, but her parents are also not able to be involved long-term, and the one sister she has lives overseas. Since we were still married and he had not updated his will, all his assets are set to pass to me and our 2 children. I'm not callous enough to leave those babies with nothing, so I agreed to let whoever is their legal guardian have the remaining balance in the shared account. About $25,000 is in savings. The issue is no one wants to take them in. Now my in-laws are pressuring me to take them in and raise them. The issue is I don't want to at all. I wouldn't love them and I don't want to be the evil stepmother, but I know a big part of me will always have a level of resentment towards them. I will probably favor my own children. It's not their fault, but I truly loved my husband, and I thought we were happy before I found out about the affair. We have 2 daughters, 14 and 16. Obviously, we had disagreements, but we never insulted each other before then. I found out about the affair, and he began calling me names and blaming me for his cheating. He became abusive and even tried to kick me out of the house, my childhood home that is not shared property for the record. I'm also raising teenagers alone now. I don't have the energy to raise babies anymore. My daughters hate their baby brothers. I tried to get them to spend time with their dad as we were divorcing, but they refused. Since this all was found out because of the babies, there wasn't really a way to sugarcoat the situation, and they are also too old to really get away with it. Most of my friends agree it's not my place to care for those children, but my in-laws, the affair woman's parents, and my mother want me to raise them. I know my mom is just having grandkids fever, but it hurts to not have her support. I have to make a decision by next week where the boys will be going. Into foster care? At the moment, they are temporarily placed with their maternal grandparents. I feel horrible, but I am very sure I can't take them in. Wibda if I refuse to take them in? Update 1. Hey everyone, this blew up far more than I thought, and I appreciate the well wishes for my girls, the boys, and myself. Also for the amount of lovely people offering to see about giving the twins a good home. I might not be their mother, but it does touch me and makes me glad there are good people out there. After thinking carefully, in speaking to my lawyer, reading responses, doing research, etc., I plan to speak to the grandparents tomorrow and refuse to take legal guardianship of the boys. I will let them know of the usernames of people that offered meeting for private adoptions or fostering. But my daughters are my priority. It'll be up to the twins' grandparents to decide if they'll proceed with adoption, keep them, or turn them to the state. I wish I had the mental capacity to be the person to do this, but I have 2 girls that are going through a lot and they need my full attention. I'll also be talking to the lawyers to figure out if the boys have any inheritance claim. If they do, I'll separate it and leave it to the lawyers to do what they need to do for them to have access when it's best. If they don't, I'll find a way to ensure they have access to the $25,000 I was going to give them since the beginning. I won't do more, however. My moral compass might be biased, but I don't believe I'm obligated, neither morally nor legally, to do more than what the word of law says. I can't help everyone, and I shouldn't have to. I have 2 girls that lost their father, 2 girls that need therapy, 2 girls just about to get to college. They've gone through enough without seeing their mother favor the children of their father's mistress. Update 2. Hey everyone. So, as I said 2 nights ago, I went yesterday to speak to the twins' grandparents. I explained my position and refused to take guardianship of the boys. My mother-in-law almost slapped me when I said that, but thankfully this was all done in a public place and my father-in-law stopped her. The maternal grandparents kept pleading for me to raise them since they didn't want to lose them. I kept saying no, and when they called me selfish, I lost it. I told them to their face the only selfish people in this mess were them and their son and daughter. Their son, my husband, for cheating and then making the divorce hell on me and my girls. Their daughter because she was I used another word that went after a married man twice her age. I told them if I heard from them again, I would request a cease and desist. I also informed my parents-in-law that they won't have access to my daughters for the foreseeable future. I'll explain why in a bit. We were at a restaurant, but I didn't stay for the meal. I also sent an email to my lawyer so he can ensure CPS and any agency involved in the welfare of the twins is aware I'm not going to be their guardian or be involved. Then I sent an email to my in-laws with all the usernames and websites from people here in Reddit that have offered to do interviews for the twins' adoption. I won't be involved beyond this point, so please, as lovely as it is, I can't help you if you are interested in the boys. Yesterday was the end of my involvement. As for why my in-laws won't see my girls, I spoke to my daughters and decided to find out more about their thoughts before I went to meet the grandparents. My youngest refused to speak to me, which I found very out of place for her. My eldest then asked for just the 2 of us to speak. That's when she explained that my in-laws had been going on about how the girls need to get ready to go to public school instead of their private school and to get jobs right out of high school since I will have to provide the twins with private schooling and college money. Apparently, they also were told to start moving their stuff to share a room. My girls have separate rooms since the twins need more space. This was not known to me, mostly because that would never, ever happen. Apparently, my in-laws have been basically bullying the girls because the babies take priority. Yeah, that's not happening. I told the girls that their grandparents have no say in where they go to school, their college funds, or how the rooms are set in our house. Also, that I do agree they could use a part-time job during college and maybe a scholarship, but their tuition will be paid. I told them not to blame the babies for the stupidity of the adults. They told me they understand, but they still don't want to interact with their brothers for now. That for now part gives me hope they'll get through things. For now, we're gonna do some changes in the house. The girls and I both don't like there's still an office space that my husband used. We're gonna make it into a gaming room for all of us. I plan to take down some pictures that have my husband in them and put them in albums for the girls. We just want to make the house more ours. As for people wondering why my girls wanted nothing to do with their father, my daughters were the ones that discovered the affair and told me when my husband took them to meet the twins at the hospital. He had asked them to keep it secret, but my girls told me. After that, my husband began treating them horribly, too. He burned all bridges with the girls. Update 3. Since there's some people who keep harassing me in PMs, I spoke to a lawyer on Monday. The boys have no inheritance claim until a DNA test is done. After that, their only claim is against my in-laws. The shared account is not considered my husband's individual property, so it's mine. Same with the lake house since he had a personal savings account and a life insurance which went to his parents. That will be the only thing the boys could claim. Obviously, this can be changed if it goes to trial, but the lawyer told me with how little my husband left my girls and I, there's very little chance a judge will demand our assets. The lawyer also recommended me to completely end the idea of sharing any money with the boys. That could be used against me to claim I'm taking fiscal responsibility for them and should be considered to be their guardian. I'm dividing the money from the shared account for my daughter's college tuitions. I'm still unsure if I'll sell the lake house or not, but neither the girls nor I are attached to it. Now please, leave me alone about the boys' inheritance. Sad as it is, my husband messed everything up for his children. I'm not responsible for them, nor do I have to sacrifice my assets to set them up for a better life. Update 4. There's some good news and some annoying news. The good news is the boys were safely retrieved by CPS from their maternal grandparents and will be placed in foster care until a permanent arrangement is made. I found out when it happened since their grandparents and my mother came to scream at me at work. In all honesty, I'm glad this happened at work and not at home. It's made me consider moving since I don't want my daughters exposed to any of this. An annoyance I had very soon after was getting a call about my inquiries into fostering and adopting. Apparently, my information was sent to CPS as someone interested in fostering the twins and eventually adopting. I immediately explained the situation between the grandparents and me, and the operator was speechless. At first, she apologized for the situation and told me she would make sure I wasn't bothered about the process. I also got served this morning. My in-laws are suing for grandparents' rights. They are also suing for custody. Apparently, they are planning to leave their assisted living, which they really shouldn't, to buy a house that allows kids to get the twins back, and now also want custody of my daughters. My personal lawyer immediately gave me some instructions I won't share to safeguard myself and my daughters from some risks during a possible custody battle. My lawyer and I both suspect my in-laws want the girls to partify them as caretakers for the twins since my in-laws have mobility limitations. It will be a cold day in hell before that happens. I don't see CPS placing the boys with them to begin with. Not all is bad news. I'm starting therapy next week, and my eldest daughter is once again speaking about the colleges she wants to go to. We still haven't really talked about their father or had them agree to visit his grave. I myself haven't gone there, and I'm trying really hard to get used to not calling him my husband anymore. I had nothing to do with the funeral plans aside from paying bills, and from what I heard, his parents had the epitaph devoted and beloved husband, father, and son written on it. I find it a joke. I know it's bad to hold on to so much anger and resentment, but as soon as I have time, I plan to change his tombstone to remove husband and father. It might sound petty, but I refuse to speak well of a cheater and abuser just because he's dead. My daughters deserved better, and so did I. And for anyone complaining about me changing the tombstone, I paid for everything at the end, so stick your complaints you know where. I don't think I'll post another update until the whole mess with the grandparents' rights lawsuit is resolved. So to the kind people that have sent support to me and my daughters, thank you so much. Maybe I'll have good news in the future, but for now, I'm going back to my old Reddit account. Additional info. Can OP take the twins in temporarily or until at least a family member can step in? OP. I don't want to take them even temporarily. I'm 45. I'm tired. I work full-time. I don't have time for babies. I don't even have a babysitter anymore. My girls are old enough to be home alone after school until I finish work. I can't do that with babies and I can't ask them to babysit them. They have after-school clubs and like to go out with friends. I don't want them raising babies. I can't take them. I can't even pick them up. They are innocent, but I can't do it. If it was reversed, my daughters would go to my cousin. That has always been the backup plan that we had in place if my husband and I both died. I'm sorry the twins don't have that, but the more I read on this, the more I've realized I can't take those babies. OP on encouraging her daughters to have a sibling relationship with their half-brothers. OP. I've tried, but they are teenagers who understand what cheating is. I won't force them to have a relationship with the babies if they don't want it. Therapy for OP's daughters regarding the affair and aftermath. OP. I have my girls with a therapist and this was brought up. The girls despise the babies. It's not the baby's fault, I know, but the girls are angry and they are pointing fingers. I don't want to put more stress on them. OP on the inheritance left for the family members from her husband's will. Anything for the twin boys? OP. The properties and the will were left on my name. The only shared property is a lake house that is currently on sale. If the will is contested, I will happily divide it. As it stands right now, I don't have to give anything. And no, it wasn't 50-50. He cheated and the divorce left me with a majority of assets per our prenup. That's the half of what he owned. The family home was mine before the marriage. The cars are getting sold and put for my daughter's college per his will. The $25,000 and half of that lake house was his assets. His personal bank account balance went to his parents per his will. There's no assets for them based on the will. The only asset they would get is what I offered to give them. The $25,000 and they could contest part ownership of a lake house. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go beyond that. I was the higher income in my marriage and in the divorce I was getting most of the assets. My daughters are about to head to college. I feel for them, but I won't have my daughter's quality of life suffer. Also, bold of you to assume my daughters are expected to love them out of the gate. They are going to therapy, and it's up to them if they one day want to be in their half-brother's life or not. I won't pressure them. I hope they learn not to hate them and at least see them as innocent in all of this, but they won't be forced to see them as family. I'm following the instructions strictly as the lawyers, my divorce lawyer and the lawyer in charge of the will, give. I won't do anything beyond the word of law as I'm advised by counsel. Also, irrelevant if I deserved a loyal husband. My daughters deserved a better father. The twins will get only what the law dictates. Update 5 October 17, 2024. Hey everyone. Some people have been asking me for updates and to be sincere, I had nothing until today. To start things, cousins from my ex-husband's side of the family took the boys in. I know them. They are lovely and I know they'll give the twins a great life. The new parents, calling them Matt and Kim, talk to my daughters and let them know if they ever want to reach out to their half-brothers, they just have to call. Otherwise, they can just see them as distant cousins. My girls thanked them but insisted they don't really want a sibling relationship at this time, but that maybe as cousins it will be okay. I did offer them the money from the shared account since they are family, and they said not to worry since they don't need it. Kim even insisted I use that money for a vacation for my girls and I. Apparently, I look like the living dead. They also set very strict lines with my in-laws and the parents of my ex's affair partner. They can see the boys, but they won't be seen as grandparents. This apparently caused a big fight with the AP's parents. Matt and Kim then cut them off. Again, threats of suing for grandparents' rights were thrown around, but it went nowhere. That's how I found out why the AP's parents couldn't take the boys permanently. The father is a convicted felon in an abuse case. I won't share the details out of respect, but if what Matt and Kim told me is true, I'm glad the boys won't grow up with that man as an example. The only reason his wife had guardianship was because of the sudden death of the parents and the process to find a relative to raise the boys. She would have had to live away from her husband to allow permanent custody, and she wasn't willing to do so. My ex-in-laws did figure threats were not going to work, so they agreed to be great uncles instead. Good for them, I guess. They now want me to let them live with me and the girls since they left assisted living recently and now the place they were in doesn't have an opening. This place has a long wait list, and the only reason they got in originally was because my ex and I offered to pay 5 years in full. They still had 2 full years paid left, and I was going to pay for them. After everything they put my daughters and me through, I'd rather burn money in a grill than spend it on them. I know they want my girls and I to be their caretakers. I won't even consider it. My daughters have their own paths to follow, and in all honesty, I want to consider meeting someone new. I know it sounds like I'm moving on too quick, but I've been working to move on since I found out about the affair. I don't think my ex deserves me to go through a mourning period. I already mourned our relationship. At least that's what my eldest daughter said. Funny enough, she's been encouraging me to go out and meet someone. We still have that custody lawsuit for my ex-in-laws going and a few other issues that I will update when I have more, but I wanted to at least let everyone know the boys are safe and together. Comment 1. You and your daughters sound actually really well adjusted. I'm glad the boys landed in a safe place and can still have some sort of friendly family relationship with their half-sisters. I think this is beyond my best expectations for this event, and I am happy for everyone, especially for the soon-to-be homeless / not in as nice a home ones. OP. They should be well enough monetarily to afford a new place, so they'll be fine. They might be horrid, but if they were to go homeless, I would put the money to at least get them a relatively comfortable facility. It's really up to them what they do now, though. Comment 2. So how come your ex-in-laws left their prepaid accommodation? Did you get the 2 years of unused rent back? That's a lot of money. OP. Nope. They signed off on the money since they were in a hurry to do their whole custody plan. I'm talking with a lawyer to see if we can recoup the money, but very unlikely since the breach was done by my in-laws. And yeah, about $180,000. Oh, I absolutely agree. My ex-FIL is pretty much blind and has a bad knee. He can barely move. My ex-MIL has back issues. Both of them are also diabetic and have other issues that in all honesty makes it impossible for them to live alone. Wherever they go, a caretaker is a must. That's why my ex and I looked for a good facility. If they had not received my ex's personal savings and life insurance, I would feel obligated. But they received a lot of money from him, enough to live comfortably if they don't squander it. Now, if they do squander it, it's on them. Again, the hypothetical scenario would be if they were without means from the get-go. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My friend told me his friend wanted him to leave his wife and daughter to be her sugar daddy. I kept his secret for a year, until his wife revealed she already knew. I, 38F, met my friend, Dave, 42M, about 4 years ago in an online gaming forum. During the entire time we talked, I became friends with his wife, Brenda, 43F, and he became friends with my fiancée, M, 38M. I live by the rule in a relationship that if there's a conversation that I wouldn't feel comfortable showing my significant other, then I don't need to be having that conversation. At no point did Dave ever cross a line with me, nor was there ever an inappropriate conversation. This is important. About a year and a half ago, in the summertime, M got a big promotion and we hosted a fun, weekend-long celebration at our home. We invited Dave and Brenda, who live 5 hours from us, and this was the first time we actually met them in person. I instantly connected with Brenda, as she was so authentic and sweet. We all got along well and even started talking about doing future get-togethers and vacations. It seemed perfect. At this time, my company was doing major layoffs and I was looking for a new career. Brenda has worked at a remote company for over a decade and recommended I apply. After a few intense interviews, I was hired. Quick side note. Dave had been injured in a work-related accident that had gone to court. He sued and won. He was permanently disabled because of the accident and can no longer work at his profession. That, along with a large life insurance policy from his parents, he is financially set for life. He stays home and raises their daughter, Leah, 5, while Brenda does her remote work from the house as well. So, a little over a year ago, during the fall, a few months after the celebration weekend, Dave and Brenda were getting ready to take their daughter, Leah, 5, on a vacation. Before they left for the airport, Dave said he needed to talk to me. It was urgent, so I stepped away to take the call. Dave then told me he had literally nobody else to talk to about this and was deeply depressed and needed to confide in me as a friend. I really wish he hadn't. He told me that the night before, he had gotten into a huge fight with who he calls his best friend, Rachel, 41F. I had heard about Rachel but never met her and didn't know too much about her, to be honest. What I did know, Dave, Brenda, and Rachel had been friends in college, approximately a 20-year-long friendship. She had visited at Dave and Brenda's house several times over the years, and that Rachel allegedly had been in a string of bad relationships of which Dave had had to bail her out financially a few times. That's about it. Here comes the information that I wish Dave hadn't told me, as it has completely changed how I view my friend. Dave told me that Rachel confessed to him the night before that she knew he was attracted to her. Yes, she is gorgeous, Dave said. He has always been attracted to her physically, but mentally, her personality, specifically her shallowness, was a huge turnoff for him. Some unkind things were said about Brenda letting herself go since having Leah, which disgusted me. He then said Rachel confessed that she is frustrated with her never-ending chain of bad relationships and wants to finally settle down. She knows he is wealthy and can give her the life she feels she deserves. She wants him to leave Brenda and Leah, move to Rachel's city, buy her a large house, and let her be his trophy wife. I choked back a laugh at this because I literally thought it was a joke. Seriously? She admits to not being physically attracted to him. Okay? Who says things like that? But knows she can satisfy him, and he can give her the lifestyle she deserves. She just demands that he has to completely cut off the life he is now, including all friends and family, and be with her. What's worse, Rachel has been planning this for literally years, sitting in their home, eating their food, drinking their wine, holding Leah, laughing with Brenda, all while planning this. I was floored. I asked what Brenda thought of all this. He said he didn't tell her. I asked him how Rachel took it when he told her to F off. He said he didn't. He doesn't want to lose her as a friend, and he even considered her proposition. I felt sick. I told him I was shocked, and, to me, even if he decides not to take Rachel up on it, this is a betrayal to Brenda. Dave explained that while his and my conversations consisted of gaming, stupid memes, and planning potential couples' vacations, his conversations with Rachel were emotional and raw. They spoke for hours on end every single day while he was caring for Leah and while Brenda was working in the next room. Okay, you stop. He asked my opinion and I told him he has two options. Either leave Brenda or completely break off all contact with Rachel and focus on his marriage. But since he asked, in my opinion, Brenda needed to know, especially since she considered Rachel a friend and knowing that Rachel wants to screw over Brenda and Leah. Seriously, typing this disgusts me. After the call ended, I told Em about it. He was as shocked as I was but asked what I was going to do. I just sat there trying to digest what I had just heard. Dave, Brenda, and Leah went on their vacation. During this time, we didn't communicate. When he got back, he told me that he had cut Rachel off but refused to tell Brenda about it. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't agree with his action to not tell her, but it's not my life, not my relationship. He asked for advice and I gave it. I told him that in my eyes, he had betrayed his wife, whether physically or not, and I still felt that Brenda deserved to know. Almost immediately, I felt myself pulling away from Dave. My image of him was damaged. When I interact with Brenda online for work, I'm professional and friendly, but it's painful keeping this secret. However, as time passed, I began to think that perhaps this was over. Dave had just made a stupid mistake and was just thinking about what could be. He didn't actually leave her, right? And most importantly, he cut Rachel out. Dave and I began talking a bit more. I actually thought maybe things can go back to the way they were. Since he didn't actually physically cheat, maybe it's best that Brenda doesn't know for her own mental health and happiness? Maybe we can move past this. So many thoughts going through my mind. So many ways of rationalizing this. The mental gymnastics were Olympics-level impressive. Then, about a month ago, he drops the bomb. He tells me that Rachel and he are talking again. She allegedly begged him for forgiveness and cried that she is going through another horrible breakup and needs his friendship, or else she doesn't know what she might do. He said he is going to keep her at arm's length. But she needs him. He will just be there for her a little bit. But it won't be like it was before. Oh, holy night. To my chagrin, love that word. As the weeks pass, he begins to mention her more and more. I tell him I don't want to hear about her, and when he keeps going, I finally snap and tell him not to mention her to me at all. I'm so pissed that he is talking to her again and that he doesn't care about how me knowing this is putting more guilt and strain in my mind, especially when I have to interact with his wife. It's completely unfair that he told me about his situationship with Rachel. Knowing that I consider Brenda a friend and that we work together every day, I've begged him to tell Brenda about it. She has the right to decide if she wants to stay and, most of all, that he is actively still friends with a woman who wishes hurt and pain on his wife and little girl. How do you sleep at night, sir? Dave still talks about planning the vacations together with Em and I, but I don't even respond. Honestly, I don't see how I can sit at dinner with them and keep quiet, especially if Rachel were to get brought up in conversation and especially if wine is involved. And let's be honest, there will be wine. I have one of those faces that speaks my mind without saying a word, which is why I do better working remote versus client-facing. I dread the day when / if either Dave or Brenda say that Rachel is coming to visit them again. I can pretend it won't happen, but let's be honest. Dave is a complete a-hole who managed to somehow miraculously prevent his marriage from going up in flames only to soak himself in gasoline and open the door to the walking, talking, gorgeous yet shallow lit match. Reddit, help me. I want to cut him out completely because I am so disgusted by his actions, but I know Brenda will be upset and drill me about it, especially since they have been planning a trip to Europe for next year and wanting us to come. Should I just tell her that we had a falling out? Should I find a way to hint to Brenda not to trust Rachel? I didn't even want to know any of this, and I'm so pissed that he dumped this on me. We were friends, but not that type of friend. As for Brenda, I would want to know if I were friends with and playing host to a girl who wanted to steal my husband and the father of my child, but I'm also concerned about my job, my livelihood. She's been with the company over 10 years, and I've only been a year. I've kept this secret from her for so long. If I say something, can it affect my employment? Should I just pull away from them and, when asked, make some lame excuse like I'm too busy? Edit. I wanted to clarify a few things. When I say friend, I mean we are more than mere acquaintances, but we aren't besties. I've always been closer to Dave than Brenda strictly because he's the one who I game with. However, Dave and I never had deep conversations before he unloaded this secret on me. We talked about low-tier Harry Potter, going to festivals, and eventually, us joining them on vacations. We haven't so far. Money was too tight for us to join them before M's promotion and before I was given this job opportunity, so vacations were something for the future. We've only ever met once in person for the promotion weekend last summer but have continuously made plans to visit or meet up in the city. Due to funds and other hiccups, the plans always fell through. Our friendship was something that we had built to get away from the stress of life, lighthearted and meant to be fun. As for Brenda, she recommended me for the position at her work, but I had to earn the position. She isn't my boss, but she definitely has seniority. Before the conversation with Dave, I had high hopes for Brenda and I becoming closer and us all being good friends down the road. Unfortunately, since this happened last year, I have kept my distance and didn't nurture my relationship with Brenda. I have no proof. The conversation where he told me everything was over the phone and I didn't record it. Plus, I'm in a two-party state, so I think I could get in trouble for that. If I tell Brenda, it will be my word against his, and if she goes to him, he can deny everything or even try to spin it against me. This is where I worry it could affect my job. My job is my biggest concern at this point. I do not want to lose my job. I don't want my job to become awkward. I would love to be able to give Brenda a heads up about the situation, but also, I can't afford to lose my job. I cannot stress this enough. If I knew I could warn her without harming my own situation, I would. It may sound like my mind is made up, but it's not. I just wanted to add those for clarification and hopes that there is something that can be done. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. You give him 1 week to tell her or you will tell him that he is emotionally cheating on his wife and she deserves to know so she can decide if he's worth staying with. You let him know that you gave him the opportunity to make things right by cutting off Rachel and he chose not to. He chose to disrespect his wife by continuing to have a relationship with someone who wants to cause her harm. I'd be honest and let him know the fact that he would even entertain Rachel's offer of a superficial relationship where she'll have sex with him in exchange for money. That's what her offer amounts to. And him abandoning his little girl disgusts you and you have lost respect for him as a person. Time to be firm about it. Either way, your friendship with him is over, So you may as well be a girl's girl and let his wife know what she's married to. At least Rachel will not step foot back in their home. Up. Thank you. This is exactly how I feel. I think I needed to hear this from someone outside the situation. Comment 2. Great advice. And make copies off all online conversations, texts, etc. in case he tries to erase or edit them. That way he can't twist things or lie about anything. And if there is a divorce, Brenda will be able to smoke his ass in a divorce, and if he is stupid enough to get his trophy wife, she'll probably bankrupt him in a few years. Update. Hello Reddit. First of all, I want to send a huge thank you to all who took the time to read and comment on my post. I read all of your replies and took most into consideration. I mentioned that I would wait until after Thanksgiving to make my decision, as I didn't want to ruin the holiday for Brenda and Leah. During that time, I decided that if I lose my job, then it would suck, but I know I can get another. I have to do what's right and what is also best for my mental health. Yesterday, with M's support, I sent out a group message to them both saying, "Hope you guys had a happy Thanksgiving." To my surprise, Brenda replied with, "Yeah, not so much." I asked what happened, and she said that Rachel's mom was in the hospital with pneumonia and Dave went to be with her for moral support, and that she was left hosting alone. Dave didn't reply. M told me that this was the perfect time and he would support me whatever I chose to do. So I sent, "I'm amazed how forgiving you are, Brenda. I don't think I could be so chill." Dave replied with, "But..." Brenda immediately called me and I put her on speaker. She asked what I meant and I said, "After what happened last year with Dave and Rachel before you guys left for vacation." She told me to go on, and that's when I knew he had not, in fact, told her. So I told her everything. I also told her I was sorry and had tried to convince him to tell her, but that I didn't know if anything more had happened. So maybe there is a chance to fix this. I told her that since Rachel was back in their lives, I assumed they moved past it, maybe since they've been close friends since college. She seemed eerily calm and said something like, "No, Rachel never went to college. She met Dave online about 10 years ago. She's never been to college or even had a real job." Reddit. I started freaking out, lost any remaining confidence I had, and told her that the reason I hadn't said anything was because I didn't have any proof, and since working with her, I had been worried to say anything about it because I didn't want to risk my job, but not anymore. I was spiraling. Brenda said she had to go and hung up. I just sat there feeling sick. 2 whole hours later, Brenda called me back. Some of you called it. When confronting Dave and Rachel, they told her that I had actually propositioned him and that I was jealous of his and Rachel's friendship. And I wondered what Brenda had. I started shaking and crying at this point. M interrupted her and said he had heard parts of the original conversation. Not all, but enough to know that what I had told him afterward was the truth. She tried interrupting him, but he cut her off. He said that this had been tearing me up and he was sick of it. He wished her the best and hoped she could remain professional at work. But after this call, he wants Dave out of our life for good. Then he hung up. About 30 minutes later, I got a text from Brenda. She apologized for us being dragged into this, said she's mortified that I know, and says M didn't let her finish. She was just telling us what they said. And then she drops this epic bombshell. She already knows what's up and has since last year. You'll get cookies if you called that, by the way. She says the way he acted last year on the vacation like a heartbroken lovesick puppy was a huge red flag, and she felt deep down something wasn't right with him and Rachel. As soon as they got back home, she started digging, looking through his computer, his phone, and iPad. It's not just Rachel, there's more. She's the only one he's met up with. None of the others wanted him in person, just his money. I asked if she's okay or if she's worried about Dave coming back. But Brenda said she already has a lawyer and has been spending the past several months getting her affairs in order. She was going to give him the divorce papers after Thanksgiving, but with him abandoning them like that, she instead took advantage of his absence to change the locks and start packing his stuff. My information, along with her lies, just made it easier for her. This chick is so much more badass than I knew. I don't know if changing locks is legal, but good for her, I guess. She apologized again for Dave, and I told her I was sorry I didn't say something earlier. She told me that if she didn't already know about Dave and hadn't read a lot of our messages, which she said were pretty boring. Ouch, lol. She probably wouldn't have believed me. It was an impossible situation. I told her that if she needs to talk, we are here. If not, then I'll just be her coworker. Either way, I'm done with Dave. EFF Dave. Now on to the next story. Story 7. In-laws made me sign a prenup because they thought I was poor. Now that I'm worth 5x more than them, they want to dissolve it and are trying to force my wife to divorce me. 8 years ago, my wife and I got married. But before that, my in-laws decided to make me sign a prenup, and I found that a bit insulting at the time because they had made it quite clear to me that I was not really welcome in their family. So, making me sign the prenup just felt like even more of a slap in the face. I had been working in sales when I met my wife, but after having been with her for 1 year, I decided to quit my job and start my own electronics brand. We were both 27 at the time, and by the time I finally got around to officially starting my business, I was almost 28. My wife had been supportive of me throughout the process, and she was the happiest when I finally got to start working on my dream business. Her parents, however, were not that happy because they thought that I was living off of her money, which was true to a certain extent. She was definitely supporting me because I didn't have a steady income, but it's not like I was completely relying on her. Anyway, at 29, I decided to propose to her, and we got married within a year. But a couple of months before our wedding, her parents came to me and told me that I needed to sign a prenup that stated that in the case of a divorce, all our assets and money would be kept separate, and I could not stake a claim to anything that was hers and vice versa. In the case of a divorce, I would also have to repay my wife and my in-laws for having supported me while I was working on my business, since they had occasionally sent money to my wife to help us out while we were living together. It was a reminder that I was indebted to them, which I thought was kind of unnecessary at that point in time, and I'm pretty sure that they included the second part of the clause that even my wife would not be able to stake a claim to anything that was mine, so it would all be fair. The agreement even stated that if we decided to have a joint account, the money from that would also be divided on the basis of who had contributed more, because my in-laws had just assumed that throughout our marriage my wife would be supporting me. When they had approached me with it, they had told me that signing off on that would be the only way for them to feel safe about accepting me as their son-in-law. It was quite insulting for several reasons. Firstly, because they had just assumed that I would always rely on my wife and would never be able to make something of myself, which was an unfair assumption in itself because I was already working quite hard at the time to get my business going so that I wouldn't be a burden on my wife or anybody else. Secondly, even before I quit my job to start my own business, they had never liked me. They had a problem with me right from the beginning, from the first time that my wife had brought me to her house to introduce me to her parents, because they did not think that I was good enough to be dating their daughter. By good, I actually just mean rich. For context, my in-laws have a real estate firm and have been doing quite well ever since they started. They come from financially well-off backgrounds themselves, so all of them have grown up comfortably. My parents had normal jobs, though. My dad was a high school football coach, and my mom was the manager at a nearby coffee shop. So, I didn't exactly have to struggle with money growing up, but I definitely did not have the kind of money that my in-laws did. Right from the beginning, they used to look down on me. It was the usual snarky remarks, mean comments disguised as jokes and stuff, and just an insufferable and weird attitude around me in general. I never said a word about it, even though my wife got quite worked up about their behavior, because I did not want them to know that they had managed to get under my skin. I believed that the best way to deal with them was by not paying any heed to them because I knew that my wife loved me, and I loved her, and that was good enough for both of us. I did not need them to approve of us. So, even when they approached me with the prenup, I felt a bit insulted, but I signed it. And when they took it to my wife, she was quite offended, but I had discussed it with her beforehand, and she signed it as well without any complaint. Both of us knew exactly what they were trying to accomplish. They were just trying to play mind games with me and insult me right before the wedding so that I would maybe back off or something, and they would be able to accomplish what they had set out to do right from the beginning. Sideline me and somehow get their daughter to be with somebody more appropriate by their standards. Unfortunately for them, they haven't been able to do that so far, and they won't be able to do that ever because my wife and I are always going to be on one team. That was several years ago, and since then, I have made a lot of progress in my career. My business grew and I kept working at it, and in the last 2 years it took off exponentially and started doing better than it ever had. All of a sudden, I guess the social media marketing and all the hard work that I had put into my company had started to finally pay off. Whatever it was, something had worked in our favor greatly. As of now, I'm worth almost 5 times more than what my in-laws are. So now, of course, they wanted to dissolve the prenup. All of a sudden, they came to visit us a couple of days back and we were all having dinner together, but after dinner, once our son was in bed, they got us both to sit down together and told us that they had been giving it a lot of thought and now they finally thought that it was time to speak to their lawyers and have the prenup dissolved. My wife looked surprised and even I was pretty taken aback for an instant, but then I decided to decline. I told them to their faces that I did not think that it was necessary since they themselves had claimed that the prenup was the only way they would feel safe with accepting me as their son-in-law, and I did not want them to lose the safety net. I was obviously being sarcastic, and I guess they picked up on that even though I tried to sound as sincere as I possibly could. They told me that several years had passed since then and we had a son together now, so they no longer had any reason to have any doubts about me, but I still declined. And I told them that I was not open to discussing this anymore. When I said that, they started to get agitated and told me that it was their idea to have the prenup in the first place, so now I should respect whatever they say and have it dissolved since they don't think it's necessary anymore. And because they are older and more experienced, they think that we should take their advice to avoid any bitterness in the future. Honestly, I had no idea what they were even talking about. But after some bickering, I told them that I had no interest in talking about the prenup anymore, and since my wife and I had no plans of getting divorced anytime soon, they should drop it as well. But they simply refused to let it go until it turned into a fight and all the drama that we had been sweeping under the rug for so many years started coming out. I finally brought up how they had only designed the prenup and brought it to me because they wanted to humiliate me and remind me that I was not in the same tax bracket as them. And now that I had surpassed them, they suddenly wanted to pretend as if none of that had ever happened. Their point was that they only wanted their daughter's future to be secure because in case I turned out to be a gold-digging husband who was going to leech off of her for as long as we were married, they wanted her to at least have a safety net in the form of that prenup, and they were just looking out for their daughter. So that went on for a while, and after some time I was too tired to keep arguing with them anymore, so I decided to tell them that I was done and I wanted them to leave. I thought I was being perfectly reasonable by asking them to leave because we were getting too loud and my son was asleep, so I did not want to wake him up. Besides, it was quite late at night at the time, so I just wanted them to go away, and then I would be able to get some sleep and take my mind off this. However, they took offense at that, and they told me that the only reason I had even been able to get to the place that I am today was because of the support that their daughter and they had given me. And there, I would beg to differ because they had never supported me. They had only ever supported their daughter. I know that in the beginning I had mentioned that they would occasionally send money to us while I was still working on my business, and I'm really grateful to them for that. But that was not for me. That was for their daughter. And we could have easily survived without their help as well because I did have some savings of my own. The only times that they would send money was when my wife would ask them for it, and that money was specifically for her own purpose because sometimes she would run short after all the household expenses for us. I had offered to dip into my savings several times, but she told me not to because her parents had the money, and she knew it, and as long as they were sending it to her, they would not have an issue with it. So technically, they did support us, but they only did it for the sake of their daughter. They never had any faith in me, and as for supporting me emotionally, let's not even go there. They had never made me feel like a part of the family, and they had no right to tell me that I wouldn't have gotten to the place that I am in today without their support. I think I could have easily done it, and they had no role to play in it, so they had no right to be throwing it in my face like that. When I said that to them, they started yelling at me even louder, and the fight just got worse because they thought that I was being ungrateful by telling them that they did not have anything to do with my success. After one point, they turned to my wife and they told her that she needed to make a choice now because they had tried to support our relationship for as long as they could. But this was getting out of hand since I refused to acknowledge their contributions at all. Somehow my wife managed to convince them to leave, and since then we haven't spoken. She has stayed in touch with her parents and has been trying to get them to apologize, even though I've told her that I don't really need an apology. I just want them to stay away from me. They can call her freely and even have the same kind of relationship with our son, but all I want from them is to give me space because I really don't feel like I'm interested in repairing my relationship with them right now, especially after everything that went down the other day since the fight had been a long time coming. And honestly, I'm surprised that we were able to avoid this kind of an emotional confrontation for so many years. But anyway, now it's done and dusted, and I just want to stay away from them. However, I recently learned from my wife that while she was trying to convince them to apologize to me for all the things that they said and for treating me badly all these years, they were trying to brainwash her into divorcing me. Last evening, she came to me with her phone and showed me a bunch of messages. She seemed pretty upset because she had been trying really hard to get things back to normal because my son really loves his grandparents, and she just didn't want things to get weird with the family, and neither did I, to be honest. But after reading those messages, I'm not so sure anymore because they were refusing to acknowledge the fact that they had ever treated me badly and were acting as if they had every right to have treated me the way that they did, even if it was humiliating for me. And not only were they defending their own behavior, they were also accusing me of being ungrateful for support, which again, I don't think there was any. And they think that that's the reason why my wife should start rethinking her marriage to me and consider a divorce right now before it gets too late because I clearly don't love her enough to respect her family. And since I don't want to dissolve the prenup, I'm also obviously suspicious of her now that I have some money of my own. It's all rubbish that they are trying to feed to her so that she gets brainwashed into divorcing me, but she isn't buying any of it. She's just exhausted trying to talk sense into them. But the only thing that she does think they have a point speaking for is the fact that they have, even if somewhat unwillingly, supported us a little bit financially in our early days when I was working on my business and she was taking care of all the expenses. However, I don't feel like acknowledging that because it was clearly only because they did not want to say no to their daughter. It had nothing to do with me, and if my wife had allowed me to, I would have used my savings to contribute during that time, and we wouldn't have had to rely on them at all. Besides, they had always made sure that I never felt accepted into the family and treated me like I was with my wife only for the money. So it's not like I didn't have to face the consequences of that. So, am I the a-hole for refusing to be thankful to my in-laws for having supported my wife and I when I was just starting out with my company? Edit. I don't actually have an issue with dissolving the prenup. I just had an issue with the timing of it all because recently my wife and I just made some big purchases for the both of us. But they are under my name. It's not a big deal for her. And neither is it for me because I know that we love each other. We're gonna make it work no matter how much we fight. In fact, we are not even fighting right now, just her opinion that she has placed, and I'm considering it. I'm not even outright rejecting it. Divorce is definitely not on the table for us, but I guess my in-laws have been doing some thinking of their own, and that is why they made the situation at this time. It's just the timing that got to me because even now they haven't stopped suspecting me and they think that they care about my wife and always have their daughter's best interests at heart, but I don't, which is why they always have to put me down. It's very obvious that even now they really haven't accepted me as part of the family, and that's what I have an issue with. As for how much they supported us financially in the beginning, I haven't repaid them, but if they ask for it, then I have no qualms about paying it all back to them. The only reason I haven't offered it myself yet is because I did not think that I owed them that because as soon as my business started making money, my wife did not have to spend a single dollar out of her own pockets. I've taken great care, and at this point in time, I think we can call it even. Whatever money they had contributed, it had been for their daughter, so it had always been given to her directly, and I had no part to play in it. And my wife hasn't had to spend much from personal expenses since my business started making money, so I think my debt has been repaid in that way. But even after that, if my in-laws think that I should pay them back now, I would gladly do it if that gets them off my back. Update 1. Hi everyone. So it has been a week since that fight that I had with my in-laws, and from what I have read so far, people have mixed opinions on my situation, but I have made up my mind. I'm going to return all the money. I do have an arbitrary figure, and I'm doing well for myself now, so I don't want to owe them anything. Neither do I want to constantly feel like I'm indebted to them forever and I need to worship the ground that they walk on because of that. I want to be able to stand up for myself without having them throw this in my face. And the only way to deal with this problem is by paying them back all the money that they claim to have supported us by contributing in our initial days. I discussed this idea with my wife, and she thinks it's good enough since her parents have not stopped trying to brainwash her into filing for a divorce from me because they think that I have disrespected them several times, even though they have never taken into account the fact that they have also disrespected me and even my family on several occasions. If they can't handle it when I am treating them the same way that they have treated me and my family for years, I don't think they had the right to be dishing it out in the first place either. Besides, I think I was quite polite with them in the beginning before the argument started and they started bringing up personal stuff and going below the belt. But with them, they have always been outright against me, and have never even pretended that they like me or my family. So I think the way that I behaved with them was quite reasonable after spending so many years suppressing my feelings and trying my best to be respectful of them. Now, by paying back the money, I will owe them absolutely nothing, since they have never supported me emotionally or even pretended like they accept me, and both my wife and I are really exhausted trying to deal with the situation at hand. So we are hoping that writing them a check will solve all our problems. Usually, that's not the way I go in relationships since I know that throwing money at something will not solve the problem. But with them, I think that's the way to go because they are literally that materialistic and selfish. I can't imagine any other parents in the world trying to ruin their own daughter's marriage, especially when a kid is involved, because they think that their own ego is bigger and more important than everything else. It just speaks volumes about how much they actually care for her and how much they like to pretend that they have her best interest at heart. But the reality is that the only thing that they care about is their image, their ego, and themselves. Update 2. So earlier today, my wife spoke to her parents and told them that I was ready to write them a check and end this whole situation because it was getting exhausting to deal with, even for her. And since all of this had started because of the money, maybe writing them a check to repay them for everything that they had done for us in the past is going to fix things. But of course, that did not fix anything, and they got offended at the suggestion itself that they could be bought out. They told my wife that this was not about the money, which is strange because from the way that they were behaving the other day while we were fighting, it felt like it was all about the money. However, now all of a sudden, it's about the respect that I have never shown them, which is insane because I can literally claim the same thing for them. My wife and I don't even know what they are talking about because I have always behaved very politely and civilly with them. It's they who have always had an attitude with me. I have literally never disrespected them, but they think that this one incident of me refusing to acknowledge and be thankful for the fact that they had supported us a little bit in the beginning is equal to years and years of them taking advantage of my love for their daughter and constantly trying to instigate me or my family members by being as disrespectful as they possibly can. It is not the same thing at all, and at this point, even my wife agrees that they didn't support me as much as they're claiming they did, and on top of that, I've already said that I'm going to pay them back so I won't owe them anything. We don't see where the problem is. If this is going to be about respect instead of money, I really don't think that I owe anything to them for reasons that I have already mentioned. Thankfully, they are not speaking to me at the moment. They are only interacting with their daughter, and my wife is completely on my side. They are still trying to brainwash her into filing for a divorce, and now they've started telling her that she needs to start taking our son under her wing and stuff, and I really can't imagine resuming a normal relationship with them after all of this. It's just pathetic that ruining our marriage won't be enough for them. They need my wife to file for custody because of their own ego. I mean, I think this is a reason enough for me not to respect them at all because this is the kind of treatment that I have been receiving ever since I met my wife. Update 3. It has been slightly over 2 weeks since that fight that I had with my in-laws, and for the past couple of days, my wife has not been responding to them because she thinks it's a lost battle. She had tried her best to explain to her parents why they were wrong, but they kept telling her to file for a divorce, and she got tired of trying to fix the situation all by herself. They had made it clear that they were not interested in fixing things anymore, so she had stopped replying to them, and that's why they decided to show up at our house today. I was the one who opened the door to them, and they ignored me and walked straight in and started calling for my wife. At this point, I'm not even surprised that they are acting like this. After accusing me of being disrespectful to them, they are just hypocrites, and they will always be just like this anyway. I didn't even say anything. I just kept waiting for my wife to come out, and after a while, when she did, she immediately told her parents that she was not interested in speaking to them unless they were ready to acknowledge our side of things. They started telling her that they were only here to confront her about her behavior because she was going the same way that I did and becoming increasingly disrespectful to them as well. If I was indebted to them, so was she, and she shouldn't forget that. When her parents made that statement, she immediately lost her temper and started shouting at them, and rightfully so. She was their daughter. She hadn't asked them to do anything for her. They had just done stuff for her, and now they did not have the right to hold it against her since it had all been done of their free will. If they had wished, though, they could have easily declined, and we could have still made it work without their help. It's not like other parents don't do stuff like this for their kids, but they do it out of love, not because they want to throw this in their faces later like my in-laws. As for gratitude, We had tried our best to be grateful to them and show them respect in spite of their ridiculous behavior with me and my family over the past years. Even then, we hadn't said anything and had quietly put up with it because we did not want to create any drama and wanted to be respectful of them so that the peace of the family was maintained. But at this point, it was impossible not to stand up against them. Now they have to realize that they cannot constantly demand to be respected. Sometimes they have to earn it, and this is one of those times. So, my wife ended up arguing with them for quite some time, but I said nothing and just stood in the corner because I did not want to interact with them at all. After some time, my wife started getting agitated, so I went to her side so I would be able to calm her down, and my in-laws started freaking out at me, blaming me for all of this because apparently all of this had started because of my refusal to dissolve the prenup. And I had to correct them. I told them that this had not started because of that. This had started when they decided that they were going to treat me badly just because I was not from the same circle of rich kids that they had expected their daughter to pick from while choosing a life partner. That's what they were really mad about for all these years, and that's why they had always treated me badly. But I had put up with it simply because I did not want to make a whole thing out of it. However, they couldn't get away with it all the time, and they needed to realize that, which is why I had refused to dissolve the prenup, because they need to know that I am not going to be a puppet for them and do as they say. Things got even more heated after that since now I was also involved, but I did not let them get to me and kept my cool. They kept shouting at me, saying horrible things and cursing me out to make me mad, but I just refused to let them get under my skin because I knew that that's exactly what they wanted, and that made them even more upset. Then they finally realized that they wouldn't be able to get to me, and so they told my wife that she needed to seriously choose between her family and me, and she declared that she was going to choose her family, which meant that she was going to choose her husband and her son. She told her parents to get out of her house and that they were going to be receiving the check soon. After that, we would be done and dusted. Her parents were shocked because they obviously had not expected this reaction from her. They had probably just believed that they were going to get another chance because that's what usually happens. But honestly, my wife and I have had enough, and when they tried to argue after that, my wife told them that she was going to call the police and have them arrested if they did not leave immediately, and they finally left. After that, we blocked them everywhere, and we are finally going to cut them out of our lives. It's going to be hard to explain to our son why he can't see his grandparents anymore, but it's fine. He has another set of grandparents who love him just as much, and maybe in the future we will be able to reconcile, but for now this has to be done. We had tried really hard to make things work with them, but unfortunately, they won't. They only want things to work on their terms, and that's not going to be possible anymore. I am honestly glad that I took a stand for myself, and so did my wife. Some things had to be addressed, and we are very happy that we've dealt with the situation now. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Sil was assaulted twice and left a letter which made my brother disown my niece. So I took her in and raised her. 16 years later, my brother showed up and demanded the girl's house. To start with, my sister-in-law, Zara, was an incredibly warm and generous person. She always greeted me with kindness and made me feel like I was a sister from the very first day I met her. Over the years, since we were both working ladies, we had gotten incredibly close to each other and spent our weekends shopping or going to lunch together. Zara was always a very fit person and took incredible care of her health. This is why when she received the devastating news of her breast cancer diagnosis, it shook all of us deeply. We rallied around her and gave her our support to fight back against the cancer. I made it a point to visit her regularly during her chemotherapy sessions to spend time with her or watch over my baby niece whenever I could. During one of my visits to her place as we sat together in her living room, she shared with me a piece of news that shattered my heart. Her voice trembled as she revealed that her doctors had delivered a crushing update. Her cancer was aggressive and was resistant to treatment. They had given her a prognosis that left little room for hope. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, and I struggled to find the right words to comfort her. In that vulnerable moment, I asked her what I could do to make things easier for her. Her eyes, usually so full of warmth and laughter, now reflected a mix of fear and resignation. She told me that she was grateful for everything that I had done for her and wished she didn't have to burden me with a secret that she had kept hidden from everyone. I firmly told her that she had nothing to apologize for and that I would do anything for her. No questions asked. It was then that she entrusted me with a secret she had never revealed to anyone, including her own parents. She confided in me that years ago, during her college days, she endured a harrowing experience that had haunted her ever since. It was at a party, a night blurred by too much alcohol, when she found herself the victim of a sexual assault. The perpetrator wore a mask, making it impossible for her to identify him. The trauma of that night had left deep scars that she had carried silently for years. As she recounted the events of that fateful evening, I listened in horror. She was in a relationship with my brother at the time. Hence, naturally, she turned to him for support and comfort, hoping that he would be the one person in the world who would understand her. However, instead of finding solace in his embrace, she was met with disbelief and blame. My brother couldn't comprehend how another man could violate her in such a way, and in his shock, he started questioning her about her actions. He implied that perhaps it was her attire or behavior towards the guy in the party that had invited the assault on her. He refused to believe that a man could just do something like this to a woman without the woman giving him some type of signal. Sil was devastated that he was questioning her this way. The weight of shame and guilt unfairly placed upon her shoulders by someone she loved only added to her anger. Despite this, she gathered the courage to report the assault to the police and even went for a medical test, which proved her statement about the assault since she wanted the perpetrator punished. However, unfortunately for my Sil, she lived in a college neighborhood where parties were commonplace and thousands of students mingled under the cover of night, so the police could not identify the masked assailant no matter how much they tried. It also did not help that none of the people present in the party came forward to testify for her. As a result, the investigation went nowhere, and my Sil never got her justice. At the time, her parents were alive, so they were the only ones who believed in her, and this is how she was able to overcome the deep shame of what had happened to her. According to Sil, after months of talking to my brother about the incident, he eventually came around and apologized to her for his initial reaction. He admitted that he should have known better to trust her and promised that he would support her better from that on. Despite the strain in the relationship, Sil didn't want to end things with him, so she decided to forgive him. In the years that followed, although my brother tried his best to be there for her, she was always haunted by the incident. I was devastated hearing this since my brother had never mentioned any of this to me. Sil pointed out to me how my brother never liked talking about this, and he had in fact told Sil to always keep this incident a secret, as if it was dirty for others to find out. I squeezed Sil's hand softly and told her that I did not judge her for anything that had happened to her because it was never her fault. Sil smiled back wryly and told me that she had more to tell me. She spoke haltingly, as if each word was both a confession and a plea for understanding. She then revealed that she had been sexually assaulted again after the first incident, but this time it was by her former boss at her previous job. I remembered how 2 to 3 years ago, she had left her job out of the blue, even though she had always liked working at her position. Sil had never told me the reason why until then. Her hands trembled as she recounted the fear and helplessness she felt during the second assault. She told me she felt numb with shock during the entire thing and was only able to move once the assault had ended. Tears streamed down her face as she fled the scene in a haze, her whole body shaking with the weight of what had just happened. She described feeling disconnected from everything, as if she were experiencing the entire ordeal from outside her own body. Later, when she sat in her car, crying, her initial thoughts turned to my brother, and she knew from his last reaction that he would again blame her. This time she told me how she felt that shame returning when she realized she had let yet another man violate her without her consent. She felt unclean and disgusted towards herself. This time, the trauma took a toll on her mental health because, unlike last time, she didn't have anyone to talk to anymore. Her parents had passed away, and she was scared to open up to my brother. As a result, she plunged into depression and even had a few panic attacks. Sil told me that she wrestled with the decision to report the assault to the police and get her boss arrested or protect her marriage. Then, 3 weeks later, she discovered that she was pregnant. At that moment, she knew with certainty that the child was not my brother's. The weight of this realization depressed her further. She was unsure of how to break the news to my brother since she thought he would definitely ask her for a divorce. As a result, due to her depleting mental health, Sil had resolved to end her life. She told me how at that time she felt so helpless and she lacked the strength to terminate the pregnancy and also didn't want people finding out about her assaults. I listened to her story, holding back tears, unable to believe everything she had gone through silently without any of us realizing anything. Sil continued to tell me how the evening when she had chosen to end her life with sleeping pills, everything suddenly changed when my brother, out of nowhere, discovered the positive pregnancy tests in the washroom. Instead of waiting for an explanation, he started jumping up and down in joy, expressing his happiness that she was pregnant and that they could finally start a family together. Caught up in his jubilation and enveloped in his embrace, she found herself unable to shatter his happiness with the truth. She later confided in me how ashamed she felt for not finding the courage to tell him the truth that day or over the course of the last 2 years that the child was never his. Sil told me how every time she witnessed the tender moments between her daughter and my brother, her heart broke anew. Tears streamed down her face as she apologized to me for lying to my brother and everyone else and even called herself a coward and a loser who didn't deserve such a wonderful family like ours. According to her, she felt getting cancer was God's way of punishing her for her lies. She told me she would be eventually confessing everything to my brother before she passed away. However, she wanted me to promise her something. It turns out that she wanted me to look after her daughter when she was gone. She held my hands as she begged me that since she didn't have any family members left as both her parents and grandparents were long gone, I was her only hope who could potentially take care of her daughter if my brother didn't accept the child after finding out the entire truth. I was quite shaken after hearing everything and took some time to process everything. As a woman myself, I felt a deep sympathy for everything she had been through. I knew she was telling me the entire truth because she was dying and needed to get everything off her chest. Of course, I understood that she had lied to my brother all this time about being the father of the baby, but she was also clearly remorseful, and at this point, there was nothing I could do other than to assure her that I would raise my niece myself if I had to. She breathed a sigh of relief after I made my promise to her. Over the weeks, as Sil's illness progressed, I continued to visit her, holding on to her hope of survival even as the reality of her condition grew more stark. Through it all, she remained courageous as much as she could. In the end, she passed away peacefully in her sleep. Her absence has left a void, but her spirit continues to still inspire me to live this life with compassion and gratitude. She has taught me that even in the darkest moments, there can be moments of grace and beauty if only we have the strength to see them. She was more than a sister-in-law to me. She was my friend and a true confidant. After her passing, my brother shared with me the contents of a letter left behind by my sister-in-law, laying bare the painful truth she had confided in me earlier. It was a heartbreaking revelation for him to learn that the child he had embraced with such joy was not biologically his own. His grief and anger were palpable as he grappled with this new reality, compounded by the recent loss of his wife. In his sorrow, he could not bring himself to hold the baby any longer, instead informing our parents and me that he would be giving her up. I firmly told him that Sil wanted me to look after my niece, so I wanted to take care of her if he no longer wanted her. This is how I brought my niece into my home without any hesitation. I felt so sad for her since she had just lost her mother, and with no other family left, her parents and grandparents long gone, I knew she needed a stable and loving environment at the time. Later, when we gathered for the reading of my sister-in-law's will, emotions were already high since everyone by then already knew that my niece didn't belong to my brother. A lot of my family members were divided about this news. However, Sil was no longer with us to take on their wrath. According to her will, she had made clear and deliberate provisions for her daughter's future, leaving every asset and resource she had made over the years for her daughter's well-being. Since Sil had received an inheritance from both her parents as well as her grandparents, she had a considerable amount of money to give. To my brother's disappointment, there was nothing allocated to him, a decision that only deepened his pain and sense of betrayal, and he loudly exclaimed how it was wrong of her to not leave him anything in her will. Sil had exclusively mentioned that she entrusted the management of these funds to me if I would be willing to take on the role of caring for her daughter. I was surprised by this news, and so was everyone else who was present. I guess this is why Sil wanted me to make that promise to her weeks ago before she passed away so she could change her will accordingly. She was right to trust her instincts and not let my brother have access to her funds, because if that were the case, he would have never let my niece have anything and would have abandoned her without any money. Since my brother was unwilling to continue caring for the child, I was eventually granted full custody of my niece, and with access to the financial provisions I had received, I've been able to take care of her all these years. My brother did try to fight me regarding the money Sil had left behind, since he felt he was entitled to receiving at least half of it. However, the judge didn't listen to him. In anger, my brother told me that he wanted nothing to do with Sil's daughter and insisted that he never wanted to see my face again, since I had clearly betrayed him by taking in the girl. I firmly told him that I was sorry for all the hurt he felt, but that I was not going to go back on my promise to my Sil. I recognized that my sister-in-law had been wrong in withholding the truth from my brother. However, with her no longer with us, I firmly believe that the child should not bear any blame for her parents' actions. This is why my focus has always been entirely on providing a loving and stable environment for my niece, shielding her from the complexities of the past. Over the years, I've ensured that my niece has everything she has wanted, using the funds left behind by my Sil. I've also bought her a home using the same, which my niece will inherit fully when she comes of age. I've spared no effort in sending her to excellent schools and caring for her as if she were my own daughter. I have not been married and have dedicated my entire life to raising my niece. Despite my best efforts, my niece sometimes understandably has questions about her parents, particularly her dad. She misses my brother, but she also understands that under these circumstances, relationships cannot be forced. My decision to prioritize my niece's well-being has strained my relationships with the rest of my family. They've all chosen to sever ties with me and no longer invite me to any event, as they believe that my actions are misguided and that I've chosen my niece over my own family. Even my own parents believe I should have given up my niece and have repeatedly told me how disappointed they are that I'm raising someone else's child who did nothing but hurt my brother. As you can imagine, the past years have been a difficult journey where I've had to navigate the rift between what I believe is right and the consequences of those decisions on my familial relationships. This year, as my niece approaches her 18th birthday, I feel a sense of fulfillment in preparing to transfer all her assets, including the house I've secured for her, as per Sil's wishes. It's a milestone I've been preparing for a long time. I feel like I've done everything I could until now to protect her, and she is now ready to make her own decisions. Just last week, out of nowhere, my brother contacted me, telling me how he needed to talk to me about something very important. My heart skipped a beat, and I thought that perhaps he had seen the error in his ways and maybe he wanted to reconnect with me and my niece after all these years. I agreed to meet up with him, but I didn't want my niece to find out and give her false hopes before I could find out the actual reason behind his visit. Hence, I arranged for us to meet while she would be at school. When my brother arrived, there was a mix of anticipation and genuine warmth as we caught up with small talk. My brother told me how he had since remarried, and I was pleasantly surprised to hear that he even had 2 children of his own. He showed me pictures of them, and his boys looked like a splitting image of him. I was a little hurt that he had not even invited me to his wedding, but I also understood that he did what he had to do after the way Sil had betrayed him. During our conversation, I couldn't help but overflow with pride as I shared the achievements and progress my niece had made over the years. I told my brother how she would sometimes ask about him and was quite mature for her age, hoping that he would tell me that he wanted to meet with her, perhaps. However, despite my eagerness to share these positive updates, he seemed least interested in my niece. He interrupted me, his tone shifting abruptly to one of seriousness, and told me that the reason he was in front of me was to not talk about my niece but to ask for ownership of my niece's house. I stared at him, wide-eyed, as he went on to explain how he and his family had recently lost their home and our parents had already loaned them a lot of money over the years, so he could no longer go to them for any help. Since he knew that I had bought this house using Sil's money, he felt it was only right for me and my niece to let him have this house to accommodate his big family while we could move out to a much smaller place. I asked him what made him think that he could even ask us something like this. My brother went on to justify how in the past he had done a lot for Sil, but according to him, that woman had turned out to be nothing but a leech. Now I knew this wasn't true, since Sil always had a job and paid for her own share of the house when she lived with my brother. Even when she underwent her chemo treatment, She paid for her expenses and also had health insurance. I pointed this out to my brother and told him that it was unfair of him to expect a house from all this when he did not even bother raising my niece after Sil passed away. However, this only pissed him off. He told me how, as his sister, I should stop holding a candle for a dead woman who was long gone and instead help him and his family secure this house before my niece could turn 18. He urged me to see things from his perspective for once and how this place was his rightful property anyway. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air as I processed his request. I couldn't help but wrestle with the implications of such a decision. The house represented not just a physical asset but a symbol of security and stability carefully planned for my niece's future. To relinquish it, no matter how much my brother needed it, would mean compromising on promises made and jeopardizing the stability I had worked so hard to provide. My niece's well-being and future were paramount, and any decision regarding her assets needed to be made with her best interests at heart, regardless of the challenges and emotions involved. In that moment, I realized the gravity of the situation and the importance of standing firm in what I believed was right. I firmly told him that I couldn't support his request because he needed to take responsibility for his own family instead of relying on his deceased wife's assets. I continued to tell him how ashamed I was that he even thought this was an option, and that he had relinquished all rights when he had given up custody of the daughter to me after Sil's death. My brother's face flushed red with anger at my response, but I continued before he could interrupt again. I expressed my disappointment that he had not been there for my niece throughout all these years. I didn't hold back in reminding him that while I understood that Sil had betrayed him, he should also understand that she had been a victim of numerous traumas. It was unfair for him to shift blame onto her now, especially considering he hadn't supported her after her first sexual assault. His eyes widened in surprise when I told him this, and he demanded to know how I knew about that since no one besides him knew the truth. This is when I explained to him that Sil had confided everything to me and entrusted me with the responsibility of caring for my niece before she passed away. Upon hearing this, my brother became accusatory, claiming I had blindsided him and told me how I was a liar just like Sil. I shook my head and countered by reminding him that Sil had been terminally ill and had suffered enough after all the years of him not taking responsibility for my niece while I had done everything in my power to support her. He had no grounds to dredge up the past and complain about it now just because he wanted Sil's money. I was tired of him acting like a victim all the time. It was frustrating to see him shift blame and demand entitlement when he hadn't been financially supportive of my niece all these years. His audacity to come after 16 years and request ownership of her house felt like a slap in the face, disregarding all the sacrifices and efforts I had made to ensure my niece's well-being and future stability. My brother was pissed that I was not giving in to his demands. Ever since our conversation, he and my parents have been repeatedly calling me, demanding that I am being difficult for no reason and that I should have family loyalty for them rather than my niece. It's so weird and scary that when it comes to money, even your blood relations can turn into animals. AITA for standing up for my niece and refusing to give in to my brother's ridiculous demands? Update 1. First of all, I am blown away by how sweet everyone has been in my DMs and in the comments. Thank you for making me smile. Secondly, I cannot tell you the number of women who have reached out to me, talking about how they have gone through what Sil went through and how sorry they feel for her. I wish I could give each and every one of you a big, tight hug and take away your pain. Sexual assault is the worst thing that can happen to a woman, and I wish someone could have helped Sil at the time. She was not a bad person, and she didn't deserve to go through what she went through. It's sad that I even have to defend her, but just because you have never been sexually assaulted doesn't mean other people don't go through it. My Sil had fought back during the first assault, showing incredible courage despite the trauma. However, the second incident left her more shaken, and she was understandably frozen in fear, which is what happens unfortunately to most victims of sexual assault. I truly wish she had felt comfortable enough to open up to me sooner because I would have supported her in every way possible. Knowing what she went through breaks my heart, and I only wish I could have been there for her during those dark times. Now coming on to some of you who are calling my Sil a cheater and not believing her story. I pray to God you never have to go through such a traumatic thing and then have people question you. If Sil had truly had an affair, she could have asked me to contact the man for custody after her death. Additionally, if there had been an affair, the man would likely not have stayed silent all these years. He would have definitely shown up for his daughter, especially knowing how much money Sil has left behind for her daughter. Also, if she had indeed had an affair, I'm certain she would have wanted her daughter to know her biological father as well and would have definitely told me until her last breath. Sil did everything she could to protect her daughter. Update 2. I sat down with my niece and explained to her that my brother had recently come to talk to me, and his main intention was to take possession of the house. I warned her to be cautious if he ever approached her. As I spoke, I could see the anger and hurt in her eyes. She had held on to hope for so many years, hoping that one day her father would reach out to her because he genuinely cared. But now, discovering that his contact was motivated by his own needs, she felt betrayed. "I can't believe him," she told me, her voice trembling with emotion. "After all this time, he only reached out when he needed something." She assured me that she wanted nothing to do with him. She told me how glad she was that her mother didn't leave him anything. She then gave me a hug and told me how grateful she was for everything I had done for her over the years. Her words were both heartbreaking and empowering to hear. It made me teary-eyed as I realized that despite the pain of her father's actions, she was strong and determined to move forward without him. Update 3. After talking with my niece, I decided to send a detailed email to my parents and my brother to document everything and make my stance clear. In the email, I outlined our recent conversations and emphasized that they had no right to ask me to give my niece's home to my brother. I explained that this request amounted to financial fraud and made it clear that I would take legal action if my brother ever tried to visit me or my niece again to ask for the house for his family. I reminded my brother that he had forfeited all rights when he chose not to care for his daughter. I also shared the numerous hardships and struggles I had faced in raising my niece on my own without any prior experience. I described the emotional, financial, and logistical challenges I had overcome to provide her with a stable and loving home. I further reminded him that he had never paid child support or even checked in on his daughter all these years. I pointed out that both he and my parents should feel nothing but shame for trying to take something that didn't belong to them. I emphasized that they had no right to suddenly step in and make demands after all this time, especially when they had contributed nothing to her upbringing and well-being. The email was long and heartfelt, a testament to the sacrifices I had made for my niece. I underscored my commitment that I would continue to protect her and honor Sil's wishes no matter what. My message was firm and unequivocal. They had lost their right to be part of her life through their neglect and lack of support, and they had no place in her future now. I never received any reply after sending that email. However, my brother and my parents have not contacted me again, which is good enough for me. The silence speaks volumes, and I'm relieved to have some peace and to know they won't interfere with my niece's life any further. As for my niece, she is busy preparing for her prom and her upcoming birthday party. Watching her navigate these exciting moments fills me with immense pride. I am so proud of the woman she has become and can't wait to be there for her at every major milestone in her future. It already makes me emotional to think about how much she has grown up and how she looks so much like Sil now, especially her lips and eyebrows. I see Sil's strength and resilience in my niece every day. I just hope that she can be as brave as her mother no matter what she does. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My jealous sister tried to frame me with a nasty rumor at school, so I went no contact with her. Then she tried to steal my fiancé at our wedding, so I exposed her in front of everyone. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I hosted my rehearsal dinner last evening. I'm getting married tomorrow, but my mother is very upset about a certain incident that took place at dinner last night, since it ended with me kicking my sister out of the wedding after humiliating her. I want to know if I really am the bad guy here like my mother is saying I am. So let me give you guys some context about the relationship between my sister and me. Jennifer is 2 years younger than me, and for some reason, she has always loathed me. I'm serious. I have never really given her a concrete reason to hate me so much, but she just has it in for me, and this isn't a recent development. She has been this way right from the age of 15. Before that, we were not close, but at least she was not going against me all the time. My dad used to treat us both equally and would reprimand her whenever she would go out of her way to annoy me, but my mother had a bit of a soft spot for her. I guess it was because she was younger, but every time I would end up fighting with her, she would tell me to let it go because I was older and I was supposed to be the more mature one. I thought my mother might have grown out of that habit, but I guess not. My sister and I kept fighting for years until I finally cut her off in my senior year. I think she was a sophomore at the time, and she was pretty popular in her year. I don't know what got into her all of a sudden, but one day she just decided that she was going to spread a nasty rumor about me and ruin my reputation. I don't want to get into it because it happened a really long time back, but in short, she just framed me for stealing a bunch of stuff. A lot of girls from various years had reported a lot of thefts at the time, which we found out was happening because of the new janitor that the school had hired, and not me, obviously. Jennifer got it into her head that she was going to spread a rumor about me being a kleptomaniac and said that, in all probability, I was the one who was out of control and had started stealing from people at school. She was pretty popular, so this spread like wildfire, and you guys know exactly how cruel kids can be. It led to a lot of bullying and name-calling, and it was a really terrible couple of weeks for me. I had even started skipping school quite frequently because it was simply easier not to go rather than face everyone. It got to a stage where I just couldn't let it go, so I decided to find out exactly how this rumor had started. After asking around for a couple of days, we got to the bottom of it. It came as a huge shock to me that it was my own sister who had started that rumor because it was just so cruel. I could have dealt with it at home, but I decided to publicly humiliate her in the cafeteria. I thought it was fair because she had also publicly humiliated me by spreading that rumor. It only made sense that I would confront her in public as well. So I went up to her and asked her if she was the one who had been spreading the rumor about me, and she had the audacity to reply with, "Yeah, so what?" That was all it took for me to start yelling at her, and I think I kind of exposed her. I started screaming in her face about the kind of rumors I could have started about her if I was as pathetic as her, and I wouldn't even have to cook up any lies because I could have just spoken the truth. I brought up how she had been two-timing her ex-boyfriend with his own cousin just a year ago, and all three of them had decided to keep it a secret to avoid embarrassment. Then I brought up how she also used to flirt with our housekeeper's son, who was 3 years older than her, only for him to complain about it to our parents. Worst of all, I exposed her for never showering during the holidays. I'm pretty sure a lot of people do that, but it's pretty embarrassing to have something like that announced in the cafeteria in front of a bunch of teenagers. After I had screamed out all her secrets in the cafeteria that day, she pretty much became the laughingstock of our high school, and I can't even say that I felt sorry about it. She was the one who started the rumor about me first, and I just put an end to it. When we came back home, we had a huge fight, and both of us said pretty horrible things to each other. It was about to get physical as well, but thankfully our parents were there to intervene at the right time. I think that was the last day that we spoke to each other because after that, we just started to ignore each other's existence in spite of living in the same house. I did not acknowledge her, and she treated me the same way, and I was pretty glad to be rid of her when I finally moved away for college. After a couple of months, even when I would come back from college, I would not speak to her, and just like that, 10 years have passed since we last spoke. A lot of things have changed. Both of us have our own lives, and after both of us had graduated from college, we didn't want to see each other anymore. So we would make sure that we visited our parents separately and wouldn't run into each other. Even during the holidays, I would only go see my family after she was gone. It was an unspoken agreement between my parents, Jennifer, and I, and we had honored that for a really long time. But then, 2 years ago, my dad passed away from an aneurysm in the middle of the night. We were all together for his funeral, and after that, Jennifer and I decided to put our differences aside so we could be there for our mother. For the past 2 years, at least on the holidays, we have gone home together, and it's been really awkward with just the three of us, but my mother tries to work with it. I was just thankful that I had my fiancé and my boyfriend, Jacob, as a part of the family dinners for the holidays, so we could cut the tension. After my dad passed away, I would say that Jennifer and I had tried not to hate each other so much, or at least pretend that we were getting along for the sake of our mother. So a couple of months back, when I got engaged, my mother talked me into inviting Jennifer to the wedding as well. Initially, I was quite against the idea, but Jacob told me that it might be nice to have her because it has been 10 years since we had our last fight, and since we are embarking on a new journey together, it might be better to bury the hatchet. As corny and sappy as it sounds, it kind of worked, and while we were creating the guest list, I decided to add my sister to it. I did not invite her to any other events, not the engagement party or the bridal shower, because that was only for close friends and family, but I decided that it would be nice to invite her to the wedding. When she received her invitation, she was nice enough to thank me for it, and even said that she hadn't been expecting one, but she was grateful that I was willing to put everything in the past. Because of her behavior, I had no reason to suspect that she might be up to something, and honestly, 10 years have passed since that incident from high school, so I think everyone should be over it by now. Currently, all my guests and of course my fiancé and I are in the hotel that we had selected as our venue. It's a little distance away from the city, and we have been here for 2 days now. The day before yesterday, most of our guests had arrived by the evening, and we had a welcome party for everyone who had come from out of town. At the welcome party, I noticed that Jennifer had been quite social with everyone, and she seemed to be having a good time. She even took a bunch of photos with me. So up until that point, I was feeling good about my decision to invite her. But that changed by the next morning because in the middle of the night, my fiancé came to my room and showed me a letter that Jennifer had sent to his room. My fiancé and I are staying in separate rooms because my mother and his parents are all kind of superstitious and think it's bad luck for the couple to be staying in the same room before the wedding. In fact, his room is on another floor altogether, and it was around 1 o'clock in the morning when he showed up in my room, so it was pretty late. The welcome party had gone on until midnight, but after that, everyone went back to their own rooms. I was also just about to go to bed when Jacob started knocking at my door, and when I let him in, he handed me the letter. I could easily recognize Jennifer's handwriting. It's pretty unique, and I instantly knew something had gone wrong. Jacob told me that he had been getting ready for bed when about 15 minutes ago, a member of the hotel staff brought this letter to him. He told her that the lady from room 306 had sent him, and that was Jennifer's room number. So even though she hadn't signed her name, we all knew it was her. I guess she hadn't been counting on Jacob and I having a good and healthy relationship, which is pretty stupid on her part since we are literally about to get married. She had literally started the letter by saying that she wanted this to remain a secret between her and Jacob. Now coming to the contents of the letter, it was pretty shocking, even by her standards. I knew that she had hated me in the past, but I thought that she would be over it by now since her behavior had been pretty normal. But in the letter, she had gone into great detail about the kind of animosity between us in the past. The only thing that she had changed was that instead of being truthful, she had switched our roles. She had made it sound like I was the one who had started hating her for no reason and went out of my way to bully her. She even talked about the incident from high school and said that I was the one who had been spreading nasty rumors about her, and just because she had called me out on it in public, I had felt humiliated and stopped speaking to her. But she did not stop there. She came up with a bunch of more lies and said that even after I had stopped speaking to her, I did not let her live in peace, and every time that I would come back home from college, I would hit on her boyfriend, and eventually the two of them ended up breaking up because of me. She claimed that I had traumatized her and been nothing short of a nightmare to live and grow up with, and the only reason she had decided to attend this wedding was because she knew that Jacob was a good man and that he deserved better. So she felt like she couldn't let him ruin his life by getting married to me because even though I was being nice right now, I was going to show my true colors pretty soon, and she did not want that for him. I would still be less surprised by this letter if she hadn't mentioned that she would be willing to elope with Jacob if he wanted to. Because in spite of the fact that she had spent limited time with him, she had started to fall for him, and she felt like the only reason the universe had brought the both of us together again was so that she could find Jacob. She ended the letter by telling him that she would be waiting for him after the rehearsal dinner in the parking lot, since she didn't want to be caught by any of the guests, and they could discuss this there. So it was a pretty shocking letter, and Jacob told me that he had come to me as soon as he had finished reading it. He literally looked sick to his stomach, and it was kind of ironic, but I actually had to comfort him. He started apologizing to me profusely because he was kind of the one who had talked me into inviting her and letting bygones be bygones, and I don't blame him for that. Let me just make that clear, since I think any normal person in their right mind would want us to clear the air because we are adults now and I'm almost 30. I don't want to keep holding on to high school drama, but it's evident that Jennifer does. Jacob was shocked, but I was infuriated because she had pretended like everything was fine and tried to take advantage of the fact that I had started to trust her after so long again. But I guess even after a snake has shed its skin, it's still a disgusting snake, and that's the case with Jennifer. So I decided it was going to repeat itself, and once again she was going to be humiliated, and I was going to make sure of it. I told Jacob about my plan, and he was on board with it, and if I'm actually being honest, he didn't even care because he was simply just disgusted and creeped out by the psychotic way my sister was behaving. It was really disappointing because Jacob had been my boyfriend for the past 4 years, and everybody knew how much I loved him, so I guess this was her way of getting back at me or something. Anyway, the plan that Jacob and I had come up with was relatively simple, and I guess some people might have already guessed what we did. After spending around half an hour with me in my room, Jacob went back to his room and made a call to Jennifer's room. He told her that he would be willing to discuss this after the rehearsal dinner in the parking lot, as she had said. He told her that at one point, he would ask for whiskey on ice, and that would be the signal for her to excuse herself, and he would meet her 10 minutes later. Then last night, after everyone had been served dessert and stuff, my fiancé asked for a whiskey on ice, and immediately Jennifer excused herself to use the ladies' room. So we knew that our plan was working. But instead of heading out, my fiancé and I stood up and made an announcement about the letter and its contents. Needless to say, everyone was shocked, but we did not have time for that, and we told them that currently Jennifer was waiting for Jacob in the parking lot, and if anybody still had any doubts, they could come with us and see it for themselves. I'm pretty sure that nobody had any doubts, but they still followed us to the parking lot. And when we finally found Jennifer, she was stunned for a couple of seconds like a deer caught in headlights. Once she came to her senses, she made a run for it, but it was pointless. Everyone already knew the truth, and we had accomplished what we had set out to do. It was pretty chaotic after that because nobody knew what to do, so I sent everyone back to their rooms except for my mother and my in-laws. With them, I went to the room that Jennifer was staying in. I wasn't sure if she would be in there, but she was. Thankfully, we had to knock on the door several times before she finally opened it, and her face was all red and splotchy. When she saw me standing outside, she tried to attack me, but Jacob pushed her back, and I told her that I wanted her out immediately. She didn't even reply. She just went back inside. We saw that she had already started packing, so I didn't even need to tell her to leave. It was my mother who took it the hardest. She started having a breakdown in Jennifer's room and started asking her why she would do such a thing since we were all convinced that she didn't even like Jacob. She just wanted to stir up drama against me. Jennifer did not reply. She just quietly packed her things as quickly as she could and then left. After she was gone, there was not much to discuss, so my in-laws went to bed. But my mother stopped Jacob and me before we could leave. She told us that she could understand that we were upset because of what Jennifer had tried to do. But even then, it could simply not justify the way we acted. I was honestly confused because in my opinion, I hadn't done anything that bad. Definitely not as bad compared to what Jennifer had been trying to do. So I had to ask my mother to explain, and she said that if I had a problem with what Jennifer had said in her letter, I should have dealt with it like an adult instead of dealing with it like I did as a teenager and creating a spectacle out of it. I should have confronted her in person and kicked her out without humiliating her like I did. When my mother said that, I kind of flared up at her, and I told her that I should have seen this coming because she always had been on Jennifer's side, and even now all she cared about was how Jennifer was feeling and the fact that her darling daughter had been humiliated even though it was her own fault. But my mom argued with me and said that she was ready to admit that what Jennifer had done was a horrible thing to do and that she shouldn't have pushed me to invite her. But it still did not mean that I had the license to do whatever I wanted to because I was dragging my family's name through the mud. She said that it was really juvenile of me to involve all the guests and said that even they might have found it really awkward, so I had kind of ruined my own wedding by doing this as well since everyone would only be talking about this at the time. However, I did not care about that. I only wanted to get back at Jennifer, and I did that. So I told my mother that I did not care what she thought, and Jacob and I went back to our room. Today, we had a gap between our rehearsal dinner and our wedding day, and everyone was free to do whatever they wanted. So I spoke to my maid of honor and a couple of the bridesmaids and asked them if everyone was talking about what had happened the previous night. They said that people definitely were shocked and had been discussing it, but they were going to forget it in time for the wedding. I asked them for their honest opinion if I had actually taken things too far, and most of them said that it was my choice how I wanted to deal with it, and there was no such thing as taking it too far, especially when we were dealing with someone like my sister. My mother, however, has not spoken to me since last night, and I feel weirdly guilty about what I did. Maybe she was right. Maybe I shouldn't have taken matters into my own hands and humiliated her once again. Now that I think of it, it was kind of a juvenile plan, but I just wanted her to feel as bad as I had felt. Also, it's not my fault she was stupid enough to write that letter to my fiancé in the first place. Anyway, coming to my question. Am I the a-hole for humiliating my sister and kicking her out of my wedding after she tried to sabotage my relationship with my fiancé? Update 1. Hey guys. So I'm getting married the next morning, and I'm kind of risking getting dark circles by staying up so late at night, but I just had to get this off my chest. I had a conversation with Jacob about whatever was going on with my mother in the evening, and there were also a bunch of comments that said that what I had done was actually kind of a bit too much. A lot of people had agreed that after what Jennifer had done, I had earned the right to go scorched earth on her, but it was not like I couldn't have dealt with it in a better way. So in a way, my mother had been right about what she had said. I probably hadn't dealt with it in the best way possible, but that was my choice. Maybe I don't have to be politically correct at all times. Sometimes I can just do whatever I want without thinking of the consequences, but that doesn't mean I don't have to face the consequences. And here, in this case, the consequences meant that I would have to sort things out with my mother because she was upset. So a couple of hours ago, Jacob and I went to her room, and she looked a bit upset. But as soon as she saw us, she pulled us both in a hug and said that she had actually been thinking about coming to us herself. Before we could say anything, she pulled us inside her room, sat down, and said that she wanted to apologize for her behavior the previous night. She acknowledged the fact that she had only been thinking about things from her perspective without even bothering to think how I might have felt. Now that she had had a day to think about it, she realized that the contents of the letter were outrageous and it was not acceptable. So maybe she wouldn't have to deal with the situation the way that I did. But it's my life. I'm free to do whatever I want, and if I thought that humiliating Jennifer was going to make me feel like I had been vindicated, it was not her place to tell me what to do. I was glad that she had come to this conclusion on her own, but I also told her that she had a point and I apologized for lashing out at her as well. I thought that would be it, but she also said that she was sorry for always siding with Jennifer when we were younger because that was why I was still under the impression that she was going to support her no matter what. But she told me that she had cut Jennifer off shortly after she had left and was planning on not speaking to her until she had apologized to both of us sincerely. Then Jacob, my mother, and I had a short discussion about how excited we were for the next morning before we went back to our rooms. So I'm pretty glad that I decided to take the advice here and talk to my mother. It definitely paid off, and now I'm going to get married as a happy woman. Update 2. Hi, so I got married to Jacob last week, and I really thought that the whole thing with my sister was over. I mean, she had already been humiliated and kicked out of the wedding, so there was literally no reason for her to come back and try to start drama with me again. But she just keeps coming back for seconds. I don't understand why. This time, she made a Facebook post saying that the only reason she had suggested that Jacob make a run for it with her was because I was a terrible human being and she wanted to give him a chance at a better life, and she thought that she was doing the right thing. And she also mentioned that apparently Jacob had been dropping a lot of hints every time they met. That's obviously a very blatant lie. I trust Jacob more than anyone, and I know for a fact that he would never do anything to break that trust, and I think that he has proven his loyalty to me more than once, so I don't understand why she is still trying to make me question it. When she put up that post, I couldn't see it because I had blocked her everywhere, so a couple of relatives had to send it to me. But they knew the truth as well since I had read that letter and everyone had seen that it was actually her handwriting, so they jumped to my defense as soon as she made that post, and everyone just started demolishing her in the comments, and people just kept sending me screenshots of her getting completely demolished in the comment section. I don't even have to do anything. I just have to sit back and watch the drama unfold. I guess she couldn't keep fighting with everyone anymore, so she took it down about half an hour back. Jacob and I couldn't stop laughing after we realized that she had to take it down because nobody was willing to buy her crap anymore. It's just sad because if she apologizes to us, she will be able to get back her relationship with our mother, the only person who will have her. Instead, she is so stubborn that she wants to continue ruining her relationship with everyone in the family, and not just her relationships. She's also ruining her own reputation by pulling off these stupid stunts because I'm pretty sure that her coworkers and her friends can also see these posts since it was on the public setting. She just can't seem to stop making a fool out of herself. And at this point, I don't even feel mad at her. I just feel pity for her because I still don't know what exactly happened to turn her into someone like this. But whatever it is, I just hope she gets over it soon because this kind of obsession with someone else is just not healthy. Update 3. So after my last update, a lot of people in the comments had suggested talking to my mother so we could actually find out what exactly had happened that made my sister into the kind of person that she is. And to be honest, even I was pretty curious to know because like I said, she did not have any problems with me until she was around 15, so something must have gone wrong at that point for her to start resenting me so intensely. I called my mother up a couple of hours ago to ask about it, and she told me that she doesn't really have a very clear memory of it, but a couple of years back, she actually had a discussion like this with Jennifer, and Jennifer had mentioned something about how she was sick of constantly being compared to me. The only problem was that I honestly couldn't think of anyone in our family who compared her to me. We are not people who would do that, and besides, we were pretty much equal at most things. It was not like one of us was prettier or more attractive than the other, and even when it came to our education, we were on equal footing. But my mom told me that apparently when Jennifer was 15, she had been dating a guy from my year, but he had forced her to keep it a secret, and he was the one who constantly kept comparing her to me, presumably because he had a thing for me, but I remember having rejected him several times. I guess that led to some internal issues that I was never able to find out about since Jennifer never told me about the relationship that she had with that guy. And then that incident took place in high school where I completely humiliated her, so that definitely didn't make things any better, and apparently people had made fun of her for several months afterward, and even the guy she was dating had dumped her after the incident. But I didn't even know about that since I had already graduated. All these things had added up, and she had started resenting me more than ever. I just wish she had spoken to me about the boy who kept comparing her to me. Maybe we would have been able to sort things out back then, but now it's too late. Maybe someday we will be able to clear the air, but right now all I can do is just feel bad for her. But thankfully, Jacob and I are leaving for our honeymoon in a couple of days, so maybe that will help distract me. Now on to the next story. Story 10. I, 25M, was planning to propose to my girlfriend, 26F, but she admitted after a night out that she cheated on me and is begging for forgiveness. How do I go about this? I've known my girlfriend since we were in kindergarten. She's helped me through thick and thin, through periods of depression, when my parents were being abusive, when I lost my grandparents. Through it all, she's genuinely my hero. She's also so warm-hearted, caring, selfless, and the best person I know. About a month ago, I told her parents and mine that I wanted to marry her, and we agreed to rent out our favorite amusement park where I would propose to her, which is also where I confessed my love to her. It is still rented for August 29th. It was also perfect until yesterday. My girlfriend said that she's going to a karaoke event with her female friends at 2 a.m. Today she returned clearly drunk and collapsed in bed. This morning she woke up in tears and apologized profusely. After she'd calmed down, she explained that she was drunk and decided to have intimacy with another man at the party after the karaoke and regretted it afterwards a lot. When I asked why she'd do this, she said that she was so drunk that she completely blanked on the fact that she was in a relationship with me. That sounded to me like she would have intimacy with other men if she wasn't with me. So I asked if she was unhappy in bed, but she reassured me that that's not the case and couldn't ask for anything more from me and regrets everything she did. I had so many more questions that I wanted to ask, but my heart completely broke and I began crying. She hugged me and said that she would do anything to get my trust back and constantly asked not to break up over this. I said that I need some time to think and went into a separate room. I have now been sitting in this room heartbroken for many hours now and don't know what to do. She said that she'd do anything to get my trust back, so I have hope that there's something I can change to ensure that she never cheats on me again, like always going with her when she goes outside. But that feels really controlling and disgusting to me. Is there any way to not break up and still have trust again that she will never cheat on me again? If I do break up though, I don't think I can ever love anyone like her again. Please try to understand and comprehend that I've known her since not long after I was even born. We were often in the same class, doing the same school work together, playing together, eating together, doing everything together. I spent many years trying to confess my love. We've spent many years living, loving, smiling together. She feels like a part of me by now. How can I just throw that part away and pretend I'll be fine? I'm saying this because I know it's common on this subreddit to basically just say, move on. But I really don't think that's possible for me, so I'm really looking for responses that suggest how we can stay together with rules to ensure that this never happens again. I would also like to hear suggestions about whether I tell mine and or her parents of the incident. I'll have to tell them to cancel the amusement park event, so I probably will have to tell them what happened, but I could excuse the cancellation as me not feeling quite ready yet or something. I'm mainly considering this because I don't want her parents to be mad/yell at her or be cold towards her because, as I explained before, she's always been my hero and I don't want someone who's helped me so much get hurt, especially because I've experienced how much that hurts. Update: September 28th, 2023. The title is probably a good enough summary to let you read this post without lacking much information anyway, so here's the update. A day after the post, I decided to ask for clarification as to what exactly happened. I was mentally prepared for every possible response except the one she gave me. From all of the information she gave me, I have tried organizing the most important information below. Before the karaoke, the boyfriend of one of her friends, whom I'm acquainted with but not particularly close with, decided to join last minute. Let's call him Richard. During the karaoke, her female friends kept daring her to chug beers. She told them to stop daring her after 3 drinks, but they kept insisting and making her feel bad by saying stuff like, "You never drink much anyway, so just for today, try to have some fun and stop ruining the moment," and other stuff. So she continued, "Can confirm that my girlfriend normally drinks far less, 2 beers max normally. She says that she remembers drinking 10 beers in about an hour. She says it's likely she drank more after that, but doesn't remember anything after the 10 drinks except waking up back home. She says that the drinks very likely made her blackout drunk." In my original post, I didn't provide much detail about when she returned from karaoke due to the word limit on posts and me not thinking that the information would matter much. Regardless, the day she returned, her female friends were carrying her by her shoulders and I had to also carry her to her bed. Her legs were barely moving, her body was not holding upright, and she wasn't able to form coherent sentences. Although until then I did not have any experience with a person who blacked out, I can only imagine that her situation was a blackout, so I do also believe that she got blackout drunk. When she woke up, she had 10 missed calls from her friends. When she called back, her friends explained what happened while she was blackout drunk. During the karaoke, Richard said that he needed to talk to her, my GF, for a moment to strategize on how they'd sing as partners. The friends decided to continue the karaoke while Richard and my GF strategized. After half an hour, neither Richard nor my GF were back, so they started checking for where they were. Richard wasn't picking any calls. After an unknown amount of time, Richard's GF saw Richard having intimacy with my GF. Of course, Richard and his GF broke up and then all of the females brought my GF home. After finding out about this, my GF was mad and shouted, "How dare he rape me?" I was in the basement before I saw my GF cry, which is why I didn't hear this, but her friend said, "He's saying she consented." My GF says that she was speechless and hung up because she couldn't believe she consented to that and started crying because she believed that she cheated on me by consenting and thought our relationship was over. She didn't know that legally, if a person is drunk, consent or not, you cannot have intimacy with them. I was surprised she thought this because even if you don't know the laws on this, how could it possibly be morally or even solely logically speaking fine to ask for someone's consent when they're barely able to communicate or think? I was really shocked by this story and started feeling really bad for my GF. I explained to her that this is rape, not consensual sex. I hugged her and tried to comfort her and asked if she needed anything and how she was feeling. She said that because she doesn't even remember anything after the drinks, she doesn't feel any of the responses normally felt after rape-like trauma. She said that she's mainly disgusted by Richard but also mad at herself for losing control so easily because of a dare and hurting me like this. We went to the police station to report this. The investigation is still ongoing. Also, to be honest, I was still a little suspicious that the story could have been made up or misconstrued, so I went to the karaoke place that they went to and explained the situation and asked if I could see the camera's footage. They agreed, and there was footage of the exact situation that I was told playing out there. There was also footage of Richard asking my GF for sex and my GF responding in a very drunk and barely audible voice. I like that. That bastard really thought that was consent. I have of course also provided this footage to the police. Although the police's investigation has not concluded, the evidence I saw is in my opinion enough for me to believe her. My girlfriend volunteered to explain the situation to both of our parents because she wants to take accountability for her actions. Her parents were very apologetic and sweet about the situation, which I appreciated a lot. My parents brought us both together to make sure that all of us were on the same page, and we had a big group hug, and my dad said something that really resonated with me. This situation is really shitty for everyone, but I know that love will prevail in the end. Unfortunately, it was too late to go back on the theme park that we rented that day, so me, my parents, her parents, agreed to proceed with it but without the proposal and invited a bunch more people. I told both mine and her parents that I would decide when the time is right to tell her that we initially rented that amusement park to propose. I told her about a week ago when things were more back to normal and her feelings seemed very complicated as one would expect, but I think her summary of her emotions being devastated but understanding is pretty good. Thanks to the advice of many Redditors, we have decided to take couples therapy, which has been really helpful in helping us understand each other and get even closer. She proposed herself that she never wanted to drink alcohol again. She said that it never even tasted that good anyway and never made me happy in the long term. She said that she mainly just drinks to fit in but now plans to stop. So far, that goal has been going great. We also realized that we both always want to do events like karaoke together but sometimes worry about bothering the other. Even on the day that she went with her friends, she wanted to go with me but thought that I looked busy so went alone. I was not busy. We have worked hard at being more communicative and expressing our feelings more, and it has seriously been great. I've also told her about my Reddit post. I want to thank everyone for all of the advice, even if it was a little mean. We are both so happy right now, and I have faith that despite this bump in the road, we'll keep riding this car forever. Now on to the next story. Story 11. My fiancée told her friend she's not excited by me and just wants to settle down because I'm safe. Then I realized she was just dating me because my parents are rich. 29M. No, this may sound like a huge overreaction on my part, but my head has been ringing ever since this happened. I've been engaged to my fiancée, 28F, for a few months now. We had dated for just shy of 2 years prior to that. It would be cliché to say everything was going great, but for the most part it was good. My family really took a liking to her, which was also really great. Now, I've never been the one to think too much about how I'm viewed as a partner, but all of that changed recently. I basically overheard her on the phone telling her friend that if she wants to find the one, excitement isn't important. She basically said, "He isn't exciting, but he makes me feel safe." And that's when I realized I wanted to settle down with him. This hit me kind of hard. Reddit. I've read these types of posts before, the whole she goes for bad boys then settles with a safe schmuck type of thing, but I don't think that's what she meant. So the day after, I just straight up told her that I overheard her talking about me and that I don't understand what she meant by not finding my exciting. She then told me that it's true that she doesn't find me exciting, but that doesn't matter. I honestly felt very hurt. Maybe my ego is fragile, I know, but it was a surprise to me because I felt like the way I see myself in my head was colliding with how she sees me, and it made me feel spaced out. I asked her what she means by not finding my exciting, and she didn't seem to know how to even answer. She could see I was upset and, as pathetic as this sounds, I made an excuse to leave and said we'll talk about it later. Ever since then, my head has been spinning. I ride motorcycles, I have tattoos, I go to the gym, I do MMA as a hobby, so how is it that I'm not the exciting guy? I've always seen myself as being that exciting guy. My ex was basically obsessed with me and constantly made it clear she found me exciting. But my fiancé now doesn't see me as exciting, for whatever reason. I was honestly shocked because I felt my sense of self kind of crumble, and what made it worse is I'm excited by her. When I see her, I want to rip her clothes off, I want to do things, I think about her, but she seemingly doesn't see me the same way at all. As crazy as this sounds, I have considered calling off the engagement entirely. Am I being crazy here? Update. The last few days have been a roller coaster of emotions. There were a lot of interesting perspectives from both male and female posters. It seems that the female poster said that being seen as safe is a really great compliment, whereas the male poster said I should run for the hills. Certainly an intriguing insight into how men and women see things differently. So I ended up talking to my fiancée about what she meant. She seemed really nervous and knew that she had upset me. I have to admit I was quite nervous too. It's not easy when your sense of self has crumbled. Learning that you aren't seen in the way you think you are is a very tough feeling. I can't describe it, but it made me really feel fragile in the truest sense of the word. I started by telling her that I was really upset about her comment because, frankly, I had always thought I was that exciting guy to her. I told her that, in my mind, I was the guy who makes her heart skip a beat. So I had to brace myself and ask again what she meant when she said I wasn't exciting. She looked like she wanted to cry because I guess she could sense I was also upset. She said that she didn't want to hurt my feelings, but that I make her feel very safe and secure. And that with me, I'm not exciting in the sense that I don't give her thrills like her exes used to. Man, that hurt, but I was still confused. She was being really vague and not really clear in what she meant. I had to ask again what she meant by thrills, and she just began crying and apologizing. She tried to hug me, but I again walked out. I seem to do this when things get emotional. So I decided to take some shrooms and spend the day outside at a nearby lake. This helped me clear my mind and come to some devastating realizations about myself. I think what I realized was that I was lying to myself. Another commenter said it, which I didn't want to admit, which is I'm more into her than she is into me. I didn't disclose this on my first thread, but she never initiates sex. I don't think she's done that once. With my exes, they always initiated with me. You see, my fiancée is beautiful to the point where I wonder how I landed her. But you see, that was the issue because I was so attracted to her, I wanted her approval. I know that sounds pathetic, but I was able to overlook red flags such as her lack of initiating sex. I thought if I stayed with her, she'd like me the way I like her. Now, here's the kicker. I thought that if I proposed to her, then over time I could win her over. I've been with women who were madly into me, and my fiancée just didn't behave like them at all. In addition to never initiating, she never complimented me much. It was always one-sided. A lot of this begs to question, why would she even be with me? I think that she saw me as someone who could provide stability, and I guess maybe she thought my exterior, tattoos, motorcycles, MMA, craft beer, was a facade. I mean, maybe she was kind of right. Not that I don't enjoy those things, I do, but I am able to have that lifestyle because my parents are wealthy doctors. Maybe she thought I was cosplaying as a bad boy, and that in actuality, I am a loaded rich kid who provides stability. The other insight I had was that, truth be told, I didn't want to actually get married. I definitely do one day, but I didn't really think it through. I thought to myself that if I propose, I will grow accustomed to the idea of getting married. But the truth is I kind of want to continue my lifestyle as it is, which involves riding my motorcycle, fixing muscle cars, traveling across the country, going to festivals, etc. Do I want to get married one day? Of course. But I want to be with a woman who is really crazy about me, someone who compliments me a lot, initiates sex, etc. So I ended up talking with her later on and telling her that I want to call things off and end things. I won't bore you with the details, but yes, she cried a lot, even got angry, said I wasted her time. I told her that it wasn't anything she did, but she didn't buy that and kept pressing. She told me that I misunderstood her comment, but I told her she couldn't even clarify what she thought. It ended with me telling her that I have nothing against her, but that I am just not ready for marriage. I told her that the lifestyle I want to continue, in addition to me not feeling the connection I thought I had with her, was why it ended. Quite predictably, but I think going forward, I'm going to see a therapist to sort my insecurities as well as find someone more compatible with myself. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.